The life of a ninja beginning in the hidden mist village. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1 Arrival. It would be great if I could fly over eaves and walk on walls. Qishuang sighed as he looked at the crowded street ahead. His rental house was not far from the company, about 10 minutes away, but every time it was rush hour, the street was crowded with people going to work like him. The 10-minute journey was extended to 20 minutes because there were too many pedestrians. If he could fly over eaves and walk on walls, he would not have to worry about being late for work. Suddenly, he felt someone patted him on the shoulder. Turning his head, he saw a slightly childish face. It was a child under 10 years old who was taking his hand away from his shoulder. It seemed that the person who patted his shoulder just now was the other person. How could such a child appear here at this time? Qishuang was a little confused. Wait. Something seems to be wrong around here. He noticed that there were a bunch of children of similar age behind the child, and more importantly, there was a wooden floor under the child's feet. He had walked this way to work no less than 1,000 times, and he didn't even remember there was such a road with wooden floors. Coming to his senses, he immediately looked around and suddenly realized that he was not on the way to work at all, but in a very wide hall, with bright lights on the top, like stars, illuminating the entire hall as bright as day. Wait, why can't I see the top of his head? Qishuang found an even stranger problem. Although he himself was not particularly tall, just of medium height, with the height of an adult, he could look down on such a child who was less than 10 years old. But now, he found that his line of sight was parallel to the other person. This means that he may have become shorter. Then, he looked down and found that his feet were more than one size smaller, and even his clothes had changed. How could this be? He raised his tender hands in horror. All kinds of abnormalities made him realize that he was probably no longer in the world where he was rushing to work just now, but came to an unknown world. What's more terrifying is that his body has become smaller, or it is not certain that this is no longer his original body. Hey, Xiaolin, what's wrong with you? Seeing his abnormal expression, the child asked in surprise. Xiaolin? Who is Xiaolin? Qishuang raised his head suddenly, only to find that the other party was staring at him intently. At this moment, the name Xiaolin seemed to have touched a key nerve in his body, and a series of memories surged into his mind like a tide. Ah! Qishuang screamed, holding his head, and squatted down with a face full of pain. Those memories that suddenly appeared were like a nail forced into his brain, giving him a splitting headache. Teacher, Xiaolin seems to be a little bit wrong. Please come and have a look. Seeing his pale face, the child immediately called the two adults at the edge of the hall. They were two guys wearing grey light armor and wearing 4 head protectors with 4 wave marks on their heads. These little ghosts are not easy to worry about. One of them frowned, obviously not willing to go over. The other person curled his lips and said helplessly, just be content. We are training these little guys in the rear, and we are lucky not to be sent to the front line. I heard that there are countless casualties on the front line. With a little skills, I'm afraid we won't survive for more than 3 days. As he said that, he walked over. I understand what you said, but I can't be happy to face these furry kids every day. The man shook his head and followed closely. Hey, little ghost, what's wrong with you? One person asked Qishuang, who was squatting on the ground with his head in his hands. Headache, it hurts so bad. Qishuang squeezed out this sentence from his teeth. Headache? The other person scratched his head and said to his companion, try your healing technique on him. He was fine just now, so it shouldn't be a big problem. Yeah. The companion responded and immediately stretched out his hands, stopping at a fist distance from Qishuang's head, and then a light green light emanated from his hands. Wow, is that the healing technique? So convenient. I want to learn it in the future. Seeing this scene, some of the children around immediately showed admiration. Yeah, me too. The other children followed suit. What are you looking at? Are you all free? The ninja graduation exam will be here soon. Are you all ready? Do you want to die in the exam room? Another guy wearing a forehead protector shouted at the children. Hearing the word death, the children turned pale with fear and all looked at their friends next to them with vigilance. Some children even showed their naked killing intent without any concealment. The children who were originally playing together in harmony suddenly became enemies who seemed to turn against each other at any time. That's right. Seeing this, the man nodded with satisfaction and then said, as a ninja, you should always be vigilant. Especially in the ninja graduation exam later, the person who kills you may be your best friend now. So, all the candidates present are your enemies. When facing the enemy, you should remain highly vigilant. Cut off all distractions so that you can pass the graduation exam smoothly. Hearing this, the whole audience was silent, but the murderous atmosphere among the children became more and more intense. How do you feel now? The green light on his hand dissipated, and the man immediately asked Qishuang. Thank you, teacher, I feel much better. Letting go of the head he was holding, Qishuang slowly stood up and replied with a smile. With the help of this person just now, he finally digested the memory that suddenly appeared. He finally knew where this place was. This is the Kirigakure ninja village, and he came to the world of Naruto, that extremely famous anime world. And he, to be precise, the body where his consciousness is about to face the ninja graduation exam. This is exactly where the problem lies. If his consciousness had possessed the children of the other 4 villages, it would have been fine, but it was unlucky to possess the children of the Kirigakure ninja village. Because he knew from his memory that the Kirigakure ninja graduation examination had an extremely strange and cruel rule. One must kill a candidate in the same examination room in order to graduate successfully. For a modern civilized person, killing is too much of a burden. He didn't know if he could do it. More importantly, once he officially entered the examination room, it was uncertain who would kill whom. If it was the original owner of his body, it would be fine. Although he was not very old, he had at least received orthodox ninja teaching and was an apprentice ninja. Fighting with candidates of the same age would have a 50-50 success rate. But he had just come to this world. Even if he had all the memories of this body and mastered all the abilities that he had, there was a difference between being new and being familiar. After all, what was controlling his body now was Nana Frost's own consciousness. Knowing how to do it was one thing, but being familiar with it was another. If you rush into the examination room like this, there is a 99% chance that you will be killed. Chapter 2. Want to retreat? No, I have to find a way to avoid this exam. Qishuang made up his mind secretly. He didn't know what state he was in now. Did his soul travel here, or did he fall into a dream? If he was in a dream, it would be nothing to die in the exam, just treat it as a unique dream experience. But if his soul traveled here and was killed in the exam, then he would really die. Moreover, judging from the current situation, the possibility of him being killed in the exam was almost 99%. Therefore, he was determined to withdraw from this ninja graduation exam. Then, he made a bitter face and tentatively said to the 2 Chunin teachers, "Teacher, my head is still very uncomfortable. Can I withdraw from this exam?" "No." One of them immediately cut off his thoughts and said sternly, "If you can't even bear a small headache, what kind of ninja are you? How can I go to the battlefield? How can I defeat Konoha? How can I defend the land of water? It still doesn't work." Qishuang sighed secretly. Although he knew that it was almost impossible to withdraw temporarily, he couldn't help but want to try. Seeing the child's low mood, another ninja teacher smiled and patted his shoulder, saying softly, "Xiaolin, don't be afraid. The road of the Kirigakure ninja is ahead. As long as you do your best and break through the thick fog, it will eventually appear in front of you." Hearing these words of encouragement, Qishuang suddenly felt a little toothache. That Xiaolin is the name of his body. These are not the main points. The main point is that he really doesn't want to take the graduation exam. That is a life or death experience. "Thank you, teacher, I understand." He showed a relieved smile to the teacher, but he was secretly complaining in his heart, thinking, "You are talking lightly, but the graduation exam is a deathly one. I don't believe it. When you took the graduation exam that year, you were not afraid at all." At this time, there was a commotion from the children next to him. "Zabuza, what is that look in your eyes? Believe it or not, I will dig your eyes out in the exam later." a relatively strong child brought to companions, and blocked a thin boy in the corner. Do you really have that strength? The boy who was blocked replied nonchalantly. The leading child continued, I know you are strong, but you are only one person. But there are 3 of us. As he spoke, he showed a look of confidence, and even the 2 companions beside him put on a playful smile. TSK. Zabuza shook his head, hissed, and curled his lips to the 2 companions behind him. Even if you want to kill me together, it is not an easy task. When the time comes, in order to pass the graduation exam smoothly, do you think he will choose to continue to chase me? Or choose to sneak attack you 2 defenseless idiots? As he spoke, he wandered back and forth among the 3 people with a playful look on his face. Don't listen to his nonsense. I won't do that. Seeing the doubtful looks of his 2 companions, the leading child immediately spoke out to defend himself. However, the more he explained, the more vigilant the 2 companions looked at him. In the graduation exam, choosing to attack someone you know day and night is the easiest way to graduate successfully, and it is also the most challenging way. Every student who enters the ninja school will hear the teacher mention that there was a candidate who killed his friend in the previous class. Therefore, they have known this for a long time. It was just 3 years of getting along that weakened their guard against each other. Today, when Zabuza mentioned it again, they suddenly realized that the person they should be most careful of was their best friend. On the other side, Nanashi didn't notice what the others were arguing about, but he clearly heard a name, Zabuza. Combined with the memory he got from Kobayashi, he immediately recognized that the child who was blocked in the corner and still calm was called Momochi Zabuza. I remember this guy killed all the candidates in his examination room during the graduation exam, right? Nanashi thought to himself, his eyebrows twisted together. He has watched a lot of Naruto plots, so he remembered that Zabuza had killed all the candidates to graduate. Zabuza was therefore given the title of Kirigakure, a man who seemed to be the reincarnation of a demon from hell, hence the name Kijin. What's wrong with you? Is your head still hurting? A teacher saw him frowning and immediately asked with concern. Yeah, that's right. It still hurts a little now. Hearing the teacher's concern, Qishuang took the initiative and pretended to be in pain. He hoped to win the teacher's sympathy and allow him to withdraw from this ninja graduation exam. Then you have to be extra careful. Because of the headache, you have become their best target. The teacher glanced at the children around him and comforted him very kindly. Damn it. Qishuang cursed inwardly. Feeling the countless covetous eyes around him, he realized that pretending to be pitiful was not only useless, but also attracted more covetous people. Now, does your head still hurt? A teacher asked with a fake smile. No, it doesn't hurt anymore. Qishuang replied with a strong face. Since it doesn't hurt anymore, hurry up and get ready. There are less than 10 minutes left before the official entry. The teacher reminded again in a kind way. Oh. Qishuang had no choice but to retreat cautiously to the side under the eager eyes of everyone. When he walked away, one of the ninja teachers said to his companion just now, he's just a child. Why are you threatening him like this? On the battlefield, who cares if you have a headache or not? If you can't even bear this, you might as well die in your own hands today. Save the face of our Kirigakure. The man replied expressionlessly. You. The companion shook his head and smiled bitterly. On the other side, Qishuang retreated to the wall, feeling very upset. If before Zabuza appeared, with his half-baked ability and his own brain, he had to play tricks with this group of children under 10 years old and fight a life and death battle, and there was still a glimmer of hope for his survival. Now, the appearance of Zabuza has completely cut off his glimmer of hope. From the memory of this body, Qishuang learned that among the candidates in their batch, Zabuza was one of the strongest, and was known as a genius. Originally, it would be fine to try to avoid him in the exam. But unfortunately, Zabuza will kill all the candidates this time, and he has no way to escape. Even if he wants to hide, there is nowhere to hide. He doesn't think that with his half-baked ability, he can deceive the ninja whose perception ability is far beyond that of ordinary people, let alone Zabuza, who is a leader among the candidates. No. I must withdraw from this exam, otherwise I will die. Qishuang bit her thumb and racked her brains to think of a solution. New book seeking investment, T_T. Chapter 3 Addiction. What should I do? While thinking, Qishuang's right hand seemed to hit something hard on his waist. Half of it was angular, and it became sharper as it went up, like a spike. The other half was round, like a handle, with something wrapped around it, and a thumb-sized ring at the end. Kunai? After touching it roughly, Qishuang immediately found relevant information about that thing in his mind. In the ninja world, there are certainly many ninja weapons, but the most practical and most commonly used one is still the kunai. Whether it is long distance throwing or close range fighting, it is a very suitable weapon. It can be said that this is a standard ninja tool for all ninjas. Now, coming to this wonderful world, he finally has the opportunity to touch this iconic ninja tool in person. He can no longer suppress his curiosity and gently pulls one out from his waist. Looking at the dark sharp blade, he couldn't help but stretch out his finger to try it. Hiss, with just a slight touch, his finger was cut open, and red blood immediately seeped out of the wound. It's really sharp. It can cut the skin with just a slight blow. If it is used to cut the throat, or pierce the heart, then wouldn't it be? Suddenly, he covered his mouth, as if he had thought of something. Then, Qishuang immediately opened his ninja bag, searched for a while, and finally found a white paper bag in his memory. It turns out that there is always a way out. Looking at the kunai in one hand and the paper bag in the other hand, he slightly raised the corners of his mouth. The paper bag contained nothing but poison. Ninja is a profession that takes people's lives by any means, so poisoning is also a common assassination method they use. Therefore, most ninjas carry some poisons on their bodies in case of emergency. Although he has not graduated yet and become a formal ninja, the original owner of this body still prepared some poisons on his body in order to pass this graduation exam. However, because they are still students, they are subject to many restrictions. They can't get those strong poisons and can only buy some mild poisons. However, this is enough. Even mild poisons are still poisons. According to what he learned from his memory, although the poison in his hand did not have the ability to kill people quickly, it could quickly make people lose their ability to move, and it was not the kind that could be detoxified immediately after taking the antidote. Therefore, in the exam, if an opponent was poisoned by him and faced his attack again, there was no way he could survive. Passing the graduation exam was a sure thing. Unfortunately, among the candidates of this year, there was a Zabuza. Poisoning was not a means to improve one's own strength. The gap in strength was too big, and there was no chance to poison. If it weren't for Nanush's arrival, the original owner of this body would definitely die in this exam. Then, under the eyes of many eager eyes, he carefully wet the bag of poison powder and applied it to several kunai on his body one by one. That kid, do you think that the poisoned kunai can let him pass the exam? A ninja teacher said disdainfully. All the candidates were under their eyes, and Nanush's actions did not hide from the two of them. It's not a bad thing to use your brain, and you don't have to look down on others like that. Another teacher replied with a wry smile. But the difference in strength and physical condition cannot be changed by one or two poisoned kunai. The man in front shook his head, still not optimistic. No one can predict luck. Maybe he will really run into an unlucky guy. Another teacher said helplessly. Maybe. At this moment, a melodious bell sounded in the hall, and the two ninja teachers immediately restrained their casual look and pretended to be ready for battle. All candidates gather immediately and prepare to enter the examination room. One of them shouted loudly. Hearing his voice, many candidates scattered in the hall quickly gathered around the two teachers, and for a while, they were shoulder to shoulder, very lively. The opportunity has come. Looking at the crowd gradually gathering, Qishuang raised the corner of his mouth, carefully loading several poisoned kunai. He also squeezed forward. Suddenly, a scream came from the noisy crowd. Suddenly, the lively hall fell into a dead silence. What's going on? One of the teachers frowned and asked loudly. They were about to enter the examination room for the exam. If something went wrong, the two teachers would definitely be in trouble. Teacher, someone fell down. A child in the crowd bravely replied loudly. Upon hearing this, many children immediately and spontaneously dispersed to reveal a boy who fell to the ground. Why is it him again? The teacher raised his eyebrows. The child who fell to the ground was none other than the one who said he had a headache and wanted to leave. Xiaolin, why don't you get up quickly? He shouted at the child who fell to the ground. However, the child on the ground did not react at all. Hey. Another teacher next to him poked him with his elbow and said uncertainly, why did his clothes suddenly turn red? He didn't remember that the child's clothes had a red pattern. I'll go and see. After saying that, he immediately stepped over quickly. After a closer look, he realized that the red color on the child's clothes was not dye, but was soaked in blood. There was a kunai on his waist with a little blood on it. It seemed that the other party was pushing in the crowd just now and accidentally stabbed himself. How could it be such a coincidence? He was a little surprised. Teacher. Come on. This kid seems to be poisoned. Seeing his black face and stuttering, the ninja teacher immediately shouted to his companion on the other side. Poisoned? Although it felt incredible, the companion still rushed over. How could this be? First a headache, then poisoned. Isn't this too coincidental? Seeing everything in front of him, he still couldn't believe it. Maybe, this kid is really unlucky? Another person shook his head and asked, what do you say? He looks like this. Even if he is cured of the poison, he will not be able to move for a while. Taking the exam like this is no different from sending himself to death. The companion curled his lips and said helplessly, we can only send him to the hospital and cancel his qualification for this exam. Then, are you going to send him, or am I going to send him? Another person asked tentatively. You should go. I'm a little angry when I see this kid. The companion gritted his teeth and said. Then, can I go? As he said that, the ninja teacher picked up the weak Qishuang and walked quickly to the exit. The remaining teacher organized the remaining candidates again and prepared to enter the examination room. Although they both felt that something was wrong, they were unwilling to believe that a child under 10 years old would be so cunning that he deliberately poisoned himself to avoid the graduation exam. If everyone is puzzled by the behavior of the teacher of Kirigakure and thinks it is not in line with the style of Blood Mist, then please take a minute to look at the chapter 1 put in the work related section, titled about the Hidden Mist Village. After reading that chapter, you should be able to understand. Chapter 4 Demon. Qishuang's sudden exit disappointed many candidates who wanted to take advantage of the situation. They originally thought that they would be qualified to graduate successfully from this unlucky classmate. Now it seems that all their expectations have been dashed. However, despite their disappointment, they still have to continue with the next ninja graduation exam. There is only one unlucky guy, and they did not put all their expectations of graduation on him. After all, the qualification of ninja still needs to be obtained by hard power. Even if they kill the other party by trickery, they dare not guarantee that they will not become someone else's graduation target. On the other side, the poisoned Qishuang was quickly sent to the hospital in the Hidden Mist Village under the care of the teacher. I still have things to take care of in the examination room, so I'll leave this kid to you, the teacher said to the two medical staff. Well, don't worry. A medical staff nodded and replied. Then, after taking another look at the child, who was in a coma, the ninja teacher quickly turned and left. After checking Qishuang's injuries, a medical staff member joked to his companion, this kid is really interesting. He was actually injured by his own kunai. Except for those new students who have just entered school, this is the first time I have seen such a stupid guy. It's so interesting. Okay, let's detoxify him quickly. If it's too late, this kid will suffer. Another medical staff member said nonchalantly. Then, the two began to remove the toxins in an orderly manner. Just when Qishuang was in a coma due to poisoning, a round of exciting ninja graduation exams began in the examination room of Kirigakure village. It is more like a life and death battle between candidates than an exam. Only candidates who are alive and have killed a classmate are eligible to graduate. This is the rule set by Kirigakure village since the first generation of Mizukage. Because he said that only ruthless people can become an excellent ninja. It is precisely because of this rule that the number of ninjas in Kirigakure village is far less than that of the other 4 villages. Even in the sand village with a poor population and scarce resources, they are slightly inferior. Perhaps it is due to this ruthless rule that the ninjas are trained in a gu-raising manner. Although the total number of ninjas in the Hidden Mist village is not large, the overall military strength is not weak. Even among the 5 major villages, it is at a medium level. Therefore, no one has ever questioned this ruthless rule. Or perhaps there have been some, but in the face of the collective, they were too small and had to shut up. Today, the rule that has been passed down for 3 generations of Mizukage has ushered in a silent challenger. Report. Report. Lord Mizukage. A hurried and panicked voice broke the silence of the Mizukage's office. What are you panicking about? Did we lose the war? Or did Konoha retreat? A man in blue quickly stood in front of the newcomer, with an angry look on his face. This is the solemn office of the Mizukage. These young people are too impetuous. He thought so. After taking a look at the visitor, he asked in surprise, I remember. Aren't you a teacher at the ninja school? Today is the day of the ninja graduation exam. You are not in the examination room, but you are running here in a panic, shouting and yelling. The man in blue frowned and questioned the visitor loudly. Let him finish his words first. A man wearing a water-shaped bamboo hat behind the desk said slowly. That was the 3rd generation Mizukage of the Hidden Mist Village. Yes, sir. Hearing the leader's words, the man in blue had to retreat in disappointment. Tell me, why are you so panicked? The Mizukage looked at the visitor and asked. The examination room. The examination room was full of blood, and there was only one candidate left alive. The visitor said terrified. Whenever he thought of the child standing alone in a pool of blood with an indifferent face, he felt a chill. Tell me clearly, what happened? Did you encounter an enemy attack? The Mizukage raised his eyebrows, feeling a little irritated for no reason. If there is really an enemy invasion, it will be a big trouble. No, no. The visitor waved his hands repeatedly. That's good. Mizukage secretly breathed a sigh of relief. As long as there was no loophole in the village's defense, causing the enemy to quietly invade, then everything would be fine. It was a candidate who killed all the students who took the exam with him. The visitor told another extremely shocking news. The blue-clothed man and Mizukage present thought they had heard it wrong. Are you kidding? A 10-year-old kid actually killed all the candidates in an examination room? The blue-clothed man asked in disbelief. Sir, I'm really not talking nonsense. The visitor said with a bitter face and a slight tremor. We counted the number of bodies. Except for the lucky one, who withdrew from the exam at the beginning. The rest of the candidates were killed by that guy. Are you sure he killed them? Mizukage asked calmly. The visitor smiled bitterly and said, when we found that he was the only one left in the examination room, we immediately interrogated him. He said that except for a small number of guys who were killed because of graduation qualifications, the rest were killed by him. Hearing this, both of them were silent. After a long while, the Mizukage finally asked, what's the name of that child? Zabuza Momochi. Zabuza. The man bowed his head and replied. Okay, you can go down. The Mizukage waved his hand to send him away. Then, what should we do with that child? The man asked again. He's just a child. The Mizukage sighed faintly and continued. Let him graduate normally. Graduating by killing people is the rule set by the previous generation. He is not wrong. We have no right to embarrass a child who is less than 10 years old. After hearing his words, the man in blue clothes next to him was obviously still unwilling. But, no buts. Could it be that the Hidden Mist Village doesn't even have the capacity to accommodate a child? The Mizukage frowned and asked loudly. Yes, I understand. Then, the ninja who came to report, turned around and left. After the footsteps faded away, the man in blue said to the Mizukage, Sir, if you indulge that child like this, and if others follow suit, the future of our Mist Village will be destroyed by our own people sooner or later. The Mizukage looked at him deeply and said, don't you think this is a good opportunity to modify the graduation rules of the ninja school? Huh. The man in blue was stunned. The Mizukage behind the desk slowly stood up and continued. The total number of ninjas in our Kirigakure is less than that of the other 4 villages. But because everyone is an elite who is decisive in killing, the overall combat power is not weak. Normally, there is no problem, but when the war starts, the disadvantages come out. If the ninja students of other villages fail to pass the graduation exam, they can return to retake, but our ninja students die directly in the examination room. As a result, our combat personnel are far less than those of the other 4 villages. And now, our front line is already very tight. But something like this happened in the rear. If it continues like this, the war will not be able to be fought at all. What do you mean, sir? The man in blue asked tentatively. Hurry up and notify those old guys, and tell them that I'm going to convene a high-level meeting of Kirigakure. Looking at the thick white fog outside the window, the Mizukage looked determined. At the end, he added another sentence in his heart. Some old rules should be changed. This year, because Zabuza killed all the candidates, the Kirigakure high-level officials unanimously passed a resolution to change the Kirigakure ninja graduation examination system. Momochi Zabuza also gained the name of Demon Man, a guy who seems to be a reincarnated evil spirit. Chapter 5 Gambling. When Qishuang woke up in the hospital bed, it was already afternoon. It seems that I still underestimated the power of the medicine and overestimated my body's tolerance. Lying on the bed, he sighed involuntarily. Although the medicine on him was just a relatively mild poison, his body was not that of an adult ninja. The so-called mild nature of the medicine was only for adult ninjas. They exercised all year round and had a strong physique. In addition, they had sufficient chakra to protect their bodies, and their own drug resistance was much higher than that of ordinary people. Qishuang's current body was just a ninja student on the verge of graduation. Whether it was physical strength or chakra, it was far less than that of an adult ninja. It was not surprising that he would be poisoned by such an ordinary poison. At the same time, he also discovered an extremely shocking fact. It is very likely that he really traveled to this world, not dreaming. According to common sense, if all this was my dream, and I was in a coma for so long before, I should have returned to the real world when I woke up again. But the result was not like this. It seems that I really traveled through time. He thought to himself. As for the original owner of this body, the consciousness called Zabuza, there is no sign of it appearing until now, and it is very likely that it has dissipated. Or, it has disappeared. He doesn't know the reason, and he doesn't want to know. There are too many possibilities. What he knows now is that this body has completely become his thing, and he has replaced the child called Zabuza and become a member of this world. Fortunately, this body and his previous life are both carefree existences, and he doesn't have to worry about anything now, nor does he have to worry about anything in the past. Although this world is very dangerous, it is generally more interesting than his previous life. In a sense, he is still looking forward to the days to come. I don't know what's going on in the examination room. Thinking of this, he pressed the call button at the head of the bed. Not long after, a young female medical staff in a white coat came to his bed. "Little guy, you called us. What's the matter?" the female medical staff asked softly, with a standard professional smile that made people unable to find a flaw. "This young lady, I want to ask, what is the result of today's ninja graduation exam?" Qishuang asked with a smile. Hearing this, the female medical staff looked solemn and looked at him deeply and then said, "You are really lucky. I heard that in your examination room, except for you, all the other candidates were killed by a kid named Zabuza." The heavy news that all the candidates were killed spread to every corner of the hidden mist village in less than a day, as if it had wings. The streets and alleys were all about the child, who was like a reincarnated evil spirit. Their hospital naturally got the shocking news. At the same time, they also learned that the unlucky child who was stabbed and poisoned by his own Kune was also a lucky person who escaped the death in the examination room. Sure enough, is that the case? Qishuang secretly rejoiced. Long before entering the examination room, knowing the existence of Zabuza, he thought about quitting the exam. Therefore, he decided to poison the Kune, create an accidental stab to himself, and then quit the exam. In fact, there is still an element of gambling in doing this. He was not completely sure that the teacher would let him quit the exam. So, he was betting that the teacher would not let him continue to take the exam when he was weak from the poison. Because that would be no different from committing suicide. Of course, what he was betting on here was not the teacher's sympathy, but the policy of the Hidden Mist Village. Although the Hidden Mist Village had a rule of killing people to graduate, the upper echelons of the Hidden Mist Village were not all fools. With the number of ninjas already being less than that of other villages, they were naturally very concerned about maintaining the population base. If there was a problem with the population base, coupled with such a rule, they would have to kill themselves. Therefore, the Hidden Mist Village attached great importance to basic people's livelihood, especially those who could be trained as ninjas. This is why the body of Nanashiro, the orphan named Zyolin, has survived until now. Without the care of the village, such a child under 10 years old could not survive alone. In a sense, the Hidden Mist village should be the best among the 5 major villages in terms of caring for the orphans. Of course, this is just their helpless move. Therefore, in such a big environment, especially under the premise that there is still a war outside, Qishuang is betting that the teacher will not let him die in vain, which is meaningless. But if the teacher ignores this and still insists on letting him participate in the exam, then he may really die. Therefore, this way of exiting is half life and half death. In any case, it is much better than his chance of surviving Zabuza's hands by betting. He doesn't have the confidence to survive Zabuza's hands when he is not proficient in the basic use of chakra. And now, the result is obvious. He bet right. Especially after he found out that he was not dreaming, but after traveling through time, he was even more fortunate that he bet right. If you are not careful, you will really die. Okay, do you have anything else? The female medical staff asked again. No more. Qishuang shook her head and suddenly seemed to remember something and asked with a smile, Sister, when can I be discharged from the hospital? The hospital is not a good place. He can't wait to leave here and welcome a new ninja life. Tomorrow. I'll give you another 4th drip later. After a night's rest, you should be fine. Don't press the call button if you have nothing to do. There are still many wounded soldiers outside waiting for us to take care of them. After that, the female medical staff waved her hand and disappeared at the door of the ward with the sound of thumping footsteps. Wounded? Qishuang frowned again. From the memory of this body, he vaguely knew that there was a war on the front line, and most of the genin who graduated from the school were sent to the front line. However, he was not quite sure what time it was now. Zabuza seems to be about the same age as Kakashi, right? Qishuang held his chin and thought silently. He still remembered that in the original Naruto, Kakashi became famous at the end of the Third Ninja World War. Kakashi became a jonin at the age of 12, and that year, Obito died in the Battle of Kanabi Bridge. Not long after that, the Third Ninja World War ended. At present, he is the same age as Zabuza, and the age difference is not much, so it stands to reason that he is also the same age as Kakashi. And now, he is 9 years old, and Kakashi is about the same age. In other words, at this point in time, there are still 3 to 4 years before the end of the war. It seems that I can't avoid going to the battlefield. Thinking of this, his heart can't help but tighten again. I went to apply for the lottery today. Haha. 2019.2.14. Chapter 6 The Future. At present, Qishuang has used tricks to avoid this ninja graduation exam, but next time, I'm afraid there will be no such good opportunity. Everything can only happen once, not twice. If he tries to avoid the exam again, or deliberately fails the exam, the Hidden Mist village will force him, a waste who has not graduated, to go to the front line. After all, now is the time to use people. Moreover, a waste who fails to graduate twice in a row may become a discarded child in the eyes of some people. If he is sent to be a bait or something, he will really be dead. Therefore, he must master the basic abilities that this body has acquired during this year of repeat and make full preparations for the battlefield next year. Although he knows that the battlefield is very dangerous, he has no choice. This war will not end for about 3 years. Even if he repeats for a year, there are still more than 2 years. No matter what, he can't hide. Fortunately, more than 2 years is not long, but also not short. There were not constant battles on the front lines. Everyone was scouting, counter-scouting, and looking for opportunities to attack. In general, the time when he really needed to fight in the battlefield should not be too much. Just be careful and don't get involved in the high-level battlefield casually. If he grits his teeth, he still has a great chance to survive. After these years, the future will be the era of their group. Apart from the Blood Mist Village incident, he can rest assured for a long time. That's right. Speaking of the Blood Mist Village incident, he remembered another thing. The person who swept away the haze of the Hidden Mist Village and ended the dark era of the 4th Mizukage was the 5th Mizukage Meitarumi. The time when Meitarumi appeared in the original work was before the 4th Ninja World War. At that time, she was about 30 years old and Naruto was about 16 years old. Naruto graduated from school at the age of 12. It was also at that time that Kakashi, who was about 26 years old, became the instructor of Class 7. Using Naruto's age as a benchmark, Meditarumi should be the same age as Kakashi. In other words, Nanashiro, who is the same age as Kakashi, is a classmate of Meditarumi at the same time. Of course, because he was held back, he was no longer a classmate of the same class, but a junior of the next class. It seems that I have to find an opportunity to invest in that woman in advance and build a relationship with her. Thinking of this, Qishuang's heart was burning again. In the entire Water Kingdom, the two strongest thighs are the Daimyo and the Mizukage. Now instead of building a good relationship and even making great efforts for Tarumime's promotion as a servant of the dragon, he has a Mizukage as a backer. I dare not say anything else. As long as he does not commit crimes, his life in the Water Kingdom will definitely be smooth sailing in the future. As for competing for the position of Mizukage, he has thought about it, but he quickly gave up this idea. The main reason is that he has too many concerns. The future of this world that he knows comes from an anime he saw in his previous life, but now he is in it. If he changes it at will, he dare not guarantee what kind of changes will happen to the future he knows. Some small details, insignificant things, can be changed, but if something as important as the position of Mizukage is changed, the consequences are hard to say. Perhaps it will turn his known future into another unknown one. That is very disadvantageous for him who knows the future. After thinking about it, he decided to observe first, follow the trend, and reap the benefits. As for whether to change the future, he will think about it slowly later. After a night, Qishuang recovered quickly under the careful care of the medical staff. The next morning, he left the hospital. However, when he left, he saw the scarred and painful groaning Miss Ninja in other wards, and he couldn't help but feel a little more urgent in his heart. He didn't want to become disabled, and he didn't want to die on the battlefield. He still had a more brilliant ninja career waiting for him. So, he had to become stronger, very strong. At least, he had to survive on the battlefield. After leaving the hospital, he did not immediately return to the collective residence arranged by Kirigakure village, but went straight out of the gate of Kirigakure village and walked into a small forest. He found a secluded and flat place and took off a necklace from his neck. It was an ordinary animal tooth necklace, which was also the favorite thing of Xiaolin. Nanashuang used a kunai to dig a hole under a big tree and gently put it in. He wanted to say his final goodbye to Xiaolin. From now on, I'm you, and you are no longer you. I will live as Nanashuang, and you, please rest here. After saying this softly, he filled the surrounding sand and buried the necklace symbolizing Xiaolin. From then on, there will be no Xiaolin in the world, only Nanashuang. Then, he strode back along the original path with confidence, ready to start a new ninja career. Not long after he left, two masked ninjas landed on the open space. Judging from the 4 ripple marks on their foreheads, they should be members of Kirigakure Zanbu. Go dig it up and see what the little devil buried. One person pointed to the place where the soil was turned and gestured to his companion. What is there to see? It's just a little devil. Although he was very reluctant, the man followed the instructions and walked slowly over. Be careful, it will be troublesome if there is a trap. The man in front continued to remind him. Hearing this, the Kirigakure who was digging the soil paused and then carefully checked the surroundings before continuing to dig. Not long after, a string of animal bone necklaces appeared in front of the two people. Look, it's just an ordinary animal bone necklace. What's there to explore? The man picked up the necklace from the sand and said nonchalantly, let me see it. The other person stretched out his hand with a serious tone. After taking the necklace, he used all the exploration methods he knew, but couldn't find out anything. Then, he handed the necklace back and said helplessly, there is no chakra fluctuation, no special marks or symbols. It looks like it should be just an ordinary necklace. Bury it back. I told you before that you are looking for trouble, but you didn't believe it. Now, you believe it. The chattering companion snatched the animal bone necklace and threw it into the pit, preparing to bury it again. The other person shook his head and said earnestly, now is a wartime. Be careful about everything. What if that kid is a spy from another village and deliberately comes out to pass on information, causing our Kirigakure to suffer heavy losses? Then the consequences will be serious. Okay, you are right. After burying the necklace back to its original place, the man returned to his companions and said, everything is normal now, we should go back. Then, with the helpless sigh of another Kirigakure Anbu, the two disappeared into the woods. Anbu, everywhere. Chapter 7 Talent. After bidding farewell to the past and returning to the Hidden Mist village, applying for a change of household registration information and officially changing his name to Nanashiro began a new life. Although his body was that of an orphan and he was alone, it was not that he had nothing left. At least, he was left with a bloodline limit, ice release. This was one of the reasons why he was able to be trained by the Hidden Mist village and enter the ninja school. As long as he grows up, he will be a full-fledged bloodline limit ninja. With this talent, he can easily surpass most ordinary ninjas. Unlike ordinary ninjas with limited resources and talents, Chunin is not his limit. He is fully qualified to grow into a Jonin and become an elite backbone of the Hidden Mist village. In the ninja world, Genin is just a miscellaneous soldier on the battlefield. Chunin is the elite of a village, and Jonin is the regular top combat force of the village. As for the existence above Jonin, the strong men at the level of Cage, they are strategic weapons. Each of them can directly change the situation on the battlefield, so they will not be dispatched easily. After all, each major village has strong men of this level. If you use them, I will use them, which will only escalate the scale of the war. Therefore, the villages will not send them out, unless it is absolutely necessary. However, strong men of this level cannot be mass-produced through education, and they are more random. Therefore, the training of talents in each major village can only stop at the level of Jonin. The profession of ninja has developed for hundreds of years, and everyone has a clear understanding of the promotion path of ninjas. In addition to the fixed and mature inheritance of the family, it is easier for the holders of blood limit to be promoted. This is the so-called foundation and talent. It is also something that many ordinary ninjas cannot achieve. This is fate. It is not difficult to understand that the Hidden Mist village will take care of an orphan with talent like him. Nanashi, who started a new life, began to study very seriously, which surprised the teachers who had taught him. They even thought that he was stimulated by Zabuza's massacre of all candidates, so he studied hard. However, this is just a beautiful misunderstanding. With the foundation of this body, Qishuang quickly mastered the basic use of chakra, and then he aimed at his own ice escape blood limit for the next step of further study. That was his talent. As long as he could master the power of ice escape, he could perform blood limit escape. Compared with those genin who needed to graduate and slowly learn escape under the guidance of the team leader, he was undoubtedly much happier. Mastering an escape in advance can greatly increase his chances of survival on the battlefield. Unfortunately, none of the teachers in the ninja school knew ice escape. This means that he needs to explore the use of ice escape by himself, and no one will teach him. Fortunately, ice escape is his innate ability after all, and it is an instinct that the body naturally possesses. He does not need to learn the basic escape like others, slowly feel the changes in the nature of chakra, and then master an escape. He only needs to follow the feeling in his heart and control the changes in chakra to create ice cubes. Although it is a bit inexplicable, talent is talent, and others cannot envy it. When others learn escape techniques, they first understand and then master them, but this kind of innate bloodline limit is to use it first and then slowly become proficient through understanding. Compared to learning an escape technique out of thin air, this kind of innate bloodline limit is undoubtedly much more convenient. Or in other words, this is the legacy of our ancestors. However, in order to enjoy this legacy of our ancestors, you need to meet a harsh condition. That is the awakening of bloodline. People who have not awakened their bloodline limits are actually no different from ordinary people, but once they awaken their bloodline limits, they can rely on the legacy of their ancestors to soar into the sky and leave most ordinary people behind. This is also the reason why bloodline limit ninjas are always envied. Nanashuang is undoubtedly a very lucky guy. His body awakened the bloodline limit 3 years ago, and it was after the awakening of the bloodline limit that he was sent to the ninja school by the Hidden Mist village. It's a pity that the original owner of his body was a child under 10 years old after all. As a child, he likes to play a lot, so in the 3 years at the ninja school, apart from completing the teacher's basic teaching courses, he did not develop his potential too much. Until Qishuang arrived, the original owner of his body could only simply condense 1 or 2 pieces of ice to play. If he wanted to perform specific ice escape ninjutsu, it would be too difficult for him. Standing by the pool in the school field, Qishuang snapped his fingers, and the chakra that had undergone a property change was injected into the pool from his feet, and a layer of ice quickly condensed on the water surface. The area of the ice was not large, only 2 meters square. One end condensed on the bank of the pool, and the other disappeared in the center of the pool. In this foggy weather, it looked a little gray, and did not look like ice at all. This was the result of Qishuang's concentration on practicing ice escape for a month. Today, he can quickly condense water into ice. However, he is only 9 years old now, his body has not grown up, and his chakra is not high. It is impossible to create a large number of ice cubes out of thin air with his own chakra. Only with the help of water can a considerable amount of ice be produced. Therefore, when he usually practices, he will find a place with water to practice. Then, he raised his leg and walked up. With a click, a huge crack appeared on the ice on the water surface. Then, with his foot as a center, spider web-like cracks expanded in all directions, and in an instant, they covered the entire ice surface. Is the strength too poor? As the ice surface broke, his body suddenly sank, and Qishuang sighed faintly. Fortunately, the moment he found that the ice surface was broken, he moved his chakra to the soles of his feet. The moment his soles touched the water surface, he immediately stabilized his body and did not sink into the pool. He bent down and picked up a piece of ice floating on the water surface. He found that its overall thickness was not very high, about 1 centimeter. With a little force, he broke it into 2 pieces again. It seems that I still need to work on the hardness of the ice. Throwing away the ice in his hand, he sighed. Because of the amount of chakra, he was going to condense ice into cones and use the ice cone technique as his current long-range attack method. As for other large-scale ice escape ninjutsu, he had thought about developing them, but his own chakra was limited, and even if he had an idea in mind, he could not use it. He could only use this simple ice escape technique as a self-defense. But with the hardness of the ice in front of him, it was impossible to cause any effective damage to the enemy. I'm afraid it would not hurt the enemy at all. He had to increase the hardness of the ice. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8. 1 year. Half a year later. Ice escape. Ice cone technique. Qishuang quickly formed a set of simple hand seals beside the pool in the training ground. A stream of clear water surged upwards in the pool in front of him, and at the moment of surging, it condensed into a white cone from top to bottom. Go. He aimed at a piece of open space on the other side of the pool. With a thought, the ice cone suddenly shot out from the water surface under his control, pointing directly at the open space he had locked in his mind. Thump. Snap. After a muffled sound, there was a sound of something breaking. He jumped over the pool in one step and came to the place where the ice cone landed to take a closer look. However, he saw that the ice cone, which was about 1 foot long, was broken into 2 pieces. Half of it was embedded in the ground, and the other half fell on the ground. However, the half that fell on the ground had broken into several pieces, and the half embedded in the ground also showed very obvious cracks. Perhaps because it was embedded in the ground, it did not completely fall apart. Is the hardness still not enough? Picking up the ice fragments on the ground, he frowned slightly. Ice of this hardness is probably unable to collide with ninja tools such as kunai, and can be easily broken and blocked by people. Fortunately, if ice of this hardness hits a person directly, it can still cause considerable damage. If it hits the opponent's vital point, it can also kill the opponent in one blow. The premise is that he has to hit the target. Forget it, let's leave it at that for now. After thinking for a while, he shook his head again. To further improve the hardness of ice, it means that he needs to work hard on understanding and controlling ice escape. However, understanding and controlling a certain escape technique is not such a simple thing. It takes a lot of time to master the characteristics of that escape technique and thus improve the power of the escape technique. Even if ice escape is his bloodline limit talent and he can use it naturally, he still needs to work hard to study it in order to exert its power. It is not possible to exert the power of his ancestors at the beginning. Compared with ordinary ninjas, the advantage of these bloodline limiters is that they have a higher starting point, and it is easier to study their own talents than other ninjas to study basic escape techniques. Maybe this research time will be less than Fizz, but this is also relative. In general, it still takes a lot of time to accumulate. Moreover, the further you go in the research of escape techniques, the more difficult it will be. At present, he has developed the ice escape technique to the limit that can be achieved in a short period of time. If he wants to go further, he doesn't know how much time it will take. And what he lacks most now is time. In half a year, he will have to take a new round of ninja graduation exams. Whether he graduates or not, I'm afraid he will be sent to the front line. Because the war in the front is getting more and more intense, and there is a shortage of manpower. The difference is that, if he doesn't graduate, he can only become a discarded child, and if he successfully graduates, he can become a seedling that Kirigakure carefully cares for. However, as far as the current situation is concerned, the possibility that he cannot graduate is almost zero. His performance in the past 6 months has been noticed by several ninja teachers, and several teachers have praised him highly. No one has ever doubted that he cannot graduate. Now, my ice escape technique is still very dependent on water sources. In the remaining 6 months, I will study water escape technique. He thought silently. In his current state, it is not impossible to perform ice escape on flat ground, but without the support of water, it will be very difficult to perform ice escape, especially the speed of performing the technique will be very slow. If he goes to the battlefield, the speed of performing the technique may determine a person's life or death. He does not want to die in the hands of others because of the slowness of performing the technique. Therefore, it is extremely important for him to study water escape and provide a key environment for performing ice escape. Fortunately, ice escape is composed of the changes in the chakra properties of wind escape and water escape. In other words, the changes in the properties of ice escape naturally contain the changes in the properties of water escape. For him who can perform ice escape, it is naturally much easier to learn water escape than ordinary ninjas. This is also the reason why blood limiters are always called geniuses and envied. The legacy of the predecessors is really too convenient. Only when studying earth escape, lightning escape, and fire escape, which are not related to ice escape, Qishuang really stands at the same starting point as other ordinary ninjas. However, he was born with ice escape, and naturally had affinity with water and wind attributes, and water overcomes fire, and fire overcomes wind. Given his physical affinity, it would be more difficult for him to study fire escape than other ninjas. This is also a major defect of the bloodline limiter. In addition to his own advantages, there are also advantages in the external environment. This is the land of water, the hidden mist village, where most ninjas are good at water escape, and several of Qishuang's teachers also know water escape ninjutsu. Although the nature change of chakra is not a popular course in the ninja school, he can go to privately ask several teachers about the nature change of water attribute chakra. Especially in this critical period, everyone is happy to give him some pointers to improve his strength and cultivate an excellent combat force for the hidden mist village. The 6-month period passed in a flash. With Qishuang's own talent and the guidance of his teacher, he successfully learned water escape. But the power of this water escape is a little unsatisfactory. There is no way around it. Time is too tight. It is already very difficult for him to master water escape. As for the power of water escape ninjutsu, he has no time to take care of it. Fortunately, he was learning water escape just to lay the foundation for performing ice escape. As for the power of water escape, he didn't take it seriously for the time being. He would have plenty of time to slowly study and accumulate it in the future. For now, it was enough. The new round of ninja graduation exams came as scheduled, but because of the Zabuza incident last year, the top leaders of the Hidden Mist Village urgently changed the exam rules. Now, the Hidden Mist Village ninja graduation exam no longer requires killing to pass. You only need to defeat 3 challenges in a row to successfully graduate and become a qualified genin. Ninashiro, who stood on the ring, easily defeated the 3 students who came to challenge him and successfully promoted from an apprentice ninja to a qualified genin. This was expected. Facing a group of students who mostly didn't know how to change the nature of chakra and only knew the basic 3 body techniques and physical techniques, his escape techniques had a crushing effect. As for other bloodline limiters and gifted people of the same period, he didn't meet them. Perhaps the teacher had a secret operation to prohibit these apprentice ninjas who were fully capable of graduating from killing each other, thereby increasing the number of graduating students. As he expected, on the day he graduated, the instructor sent by the higher-ups took him and 2 other newly graduated genin to the front line without any intention of taking them to do the daily tasks. Even these fledgling guys were not spared, so the war on the front line was really tense to the extreme. Naruto and his friends only tested the basic 3 body technique in their graduation exam, so the Kirigakure graduation rules I changed are much higher than those of Konoha. As for how to defeat the 3 challenges, I'm too lazy to write it. Beating up children is really boring. Chapter 9 Online. Qishuang's new instructor is a young man who looks less than 20 years old. He is estimated to be about 18 years old and can be called a teenager. My name is Kamiyamu. I'm a chunin. I just withdrew from the front line and I will be your instructor in the future. The young teacher introduced himself while walking quickly and then turned his head to look at the 3 people and continued. Now, the 3 of you briefly introduce yourselves. Hearing this, Qishuang immediately looked at the young teacher in front of him carefully and thought to himself, it's really not simple. Although this teacher is not very old, he is also a chunin level existence who has been on the battlefield for many years. Although he can't be said to be battle hardened, he can be regarded as experienced. After all, being able to survive in that cannibalistic battlefield until now, this alone is enough to surpass many people. Hearing the teacher's words, Qishuang's other 2 companions immediately introduced themselves carefully. He also took this opportunity to learn the names of the 2 people, one of whom was named Kamimura and the other was named Zashu. The 2 were genin who graduated at the same time as him, but Qishuang had no impression of them at all. They were not among those talented people and should be mediocre guys. Then, the introduction of the 2 people confirmed his guess. Apart from the basic 3 body technique, basic physical technique and the use of ninja tools, they knew nothing else. They were indeed extremely mediocre. It would be difficult for such people to survive on the battlefield. Qishuang felt that, unless the ancestors of these 2 companions were smoking, they would not survive on the battlefield for a few days. At the same time, he also noticed the disappointment that flashed across Kamiyamu's face. That kid, what about you? What can you do? The young teacher looked at the last student who had not introduced himself with expectation. If it were not for the request from the superiors, he would never be willing to be the nanny of this group of chicks. You know, he is going to take these chicks who have just broken their shells to the battlefield. It's not a simple task. If you are not careful, people will die. It is a complete burden to take such a group of little guys who only know basic skills and have not seen the cruelty of the battlefield. Therefore, if one of these 3 fledglings can have some advanced skills and can help a little, he will be thankful. Ahem. Qishuang cleared his throat and under the envious eyes of the other 2 companions, he slowly said, in addition to the basic skills taught in school, I also know some ice escape and water escape. Really? Kamiyamu asked happily. Unexpectedly, he could pick up a seedling who can do 2 escape techniques, and he is also a blood limit ninja, which really surprised him. Teacher Mew, Qishuang said the truth. He is one of the strongest people recognized among our graduating gen in this period. I have seen him practicing ice escape in the training ground. The friend named Kamimura introduced to the teacher excitedly. Yeah. I have also seen Qishuang practicing escape techniques. Zashu next to him also nodded. That's great. Kamiyamu's heart can finally be put down. If these 3 people are all useless, if they are taken to the battlefield like this, not only they will be in danger, but also he himself will be in danger. Isn't there a saying like this? Don't be afraid of godlike opponents, just be afraid of teammates like pigs. He didn't want to risk his life to take care of these 3 fledglings. After all, the friendship between them as master and apprentice is not that deep. At present, there is an ice escape user. Although it is unknown how much power he can exert, it is better than nothing. After a day of trekking and taking a special warship, the 4 of them soon arrived at the border of the water country. To be precise, it is more appropriate to say that it is the border of the fire country. The water country is composed of many islands and sea areas. As long as it is an unknown sea area, they can say that they are their own territory. In addition, most of the mist hidden ninjas are good at water escape, and there are few forces on the sea that can compete with them, so the other 4 major villages turn a blind eye to this situation. After all, it is useless for them to fight for the vast sea area, and it is impossible for the water country to bring all the sea areas under its rule. Therefore, they just ignore the words of the water country and use their coastal waters as they should. This time, the war between the fire country and the water country was actually an invasion war of the water country against the fire country. Therefore, the main battle areas of the 2 sides were mainly in the coastal areas of the fire country. After arriving at the front line, Kamehameha immediately took the 3 people to the front line command post of the hidden mist village to report in. Then, with the faint sound of explosions, Qishuang spent the first tense night on the front line. The next morning, Kamehameha summoned the 3 people. Didn't you sleep well? Looking at the dark circles under the eyes of the 3 people, the young teacher asked jokingly. Yeah. The 3 nodded at the same time. All of them complained in their hearts. In such a place, it would be strange to sleep well. In the future, when you get used to this environment, you will be able to sleep well. Kamehameha smiled, and then solemnly said to the 3 people, good sleep can make you energetic when facing the enemy and less likely to make mistakes. However, if you sleep too deeply, it is easy to be attacked at night. As he said that, he made a throat-cutting gesture to the 3 people with murderous intent, which frightened Shankan and Zayashu to tremble. Qishuang frowned slightly, and couldn't help but doubt, can such a timid guy really go to the battlefield? Although he was a little uneasy, he was an adult in his previous life. Now, although he is a 10-year-old child, his psychological quality is far better than the 2 unpromising companions. At least, he still has the calmness he should have. He was a little worried that the 2 companions would drag him down. On the other side, seeing Qishuang's calmness, Shengumyu nodded and thought to himself, sure enough, this kid is more reliable. Those 2 guys are too cowardly. They may not be reliable at the critical moment. Teacher Mew, you called us together. Is there any task assigned by the command? Qishuang asked the young teacher curiously. Apart from this, he really couldn't find a reason why Shengumyu called them together. After all, they didn't come to the front line to do logistics or play. However, he was a little worried that if they were directly sent to participate in some combat mission, it would be dangerous. Seeing his solemn face, Shengumyu laughed and said, don't be nervous. Because with you 3 rookies, the higher-ups will not assign too dangerous tasks. We just want to simply investigate and explore the enemy situation. New book seeking investment, T_T. Chapter 10 Encounter. This. Qishuang's heart, which had just been put down, was raised again. This kind of investigation task seems easy and simple, but in fact, it also hides dangers. If nothing is found, or if the enemy is not found, then everything will be fine. But if you encounter the enemy, or the enemy finds out about it, that's another matter. At that time, the easy investigation task will become a life and death battle. Qishuang really doesn't want to fight with others, unless it is absolutely necessary. Because, he doesn't know if he will win, or lose. But he has no right to refuse the tasks assigned by his superiors, he can only obey. All he can do is be careful. He doesn't want to die young. Unfortunately, his 2 simple-minded companions didn't realize the danger at all, but showed an eager look. This made him more worried. There was no way. They were just ordinary children around 10 years old. Except for those precocious guys, he couldn't expect these 2 people to understand anything. At the same time, he didn't have the mind to talk about big principles with others. After all, he didn't want to attract too much attention. If he accidentally let something slip, it would be troublesome. Then, the four of them began a tense and exciting exploration mission. The war between ninja troops is actually no different from ordinary mortal wars. In addition to the confrontation and melee on the front battlefield, they also secretly inquire about each other's intelligence and look for opportunities to attack. Although the small-scale battles in private are not as fierce as those on the front battlefield, there are explorers missing every day and they can never come back to report the situation. When everyone finds them again, except for those who died on the spot, most of the rest committed suicide. Qishuang heard Teacher Mu remind her that it is better to die in battle or commit suicide than to surrender and be captured. Because you never know what kind of forced confession the other party will use to obtain information from you. The result of that is likely to be worse than death. Some people died on the Kirigakure side, and the same situation was also true on the Konoha side. After all, the spies are flesh and blood, not immortal. However, the warriors who returned from the Kirigakure side who killed the enemy deserved rewards and praise from everyone. This made Qishuang's two companions very jealous. It was not known whether they were lucky or unlucky. After half a month, they had not encountered any enemy spies. To be precise, it was Konoha's spies. This situation also made his two companions in the same team become impatient from the initial slight excitement. They wanted to fight with Konoha's people, kill their opponents, and become heroes praised by others. Instead of doing boring investigation tasks here, Qishuang and Kamiyamu saw this, but they were indifferent. Qishuang himself would be fine. He didn't have the kindness to remind the two, but Teacher Mu's attitude was also intriguing. As a teacher, he didn't have any intention of enlightening the two subordinates, allowing them to keep such dangerous ideas, which made Qishuang confused. In the dense forest, Kamiyamu, who was originally leading the fast-moving, suddenly stopped and raised his hand to signal the three people behind to stop. Teacher Mu, have you discovered the enemy? Kamiyamu asked with faint excitement, with a kunai in his right hand. He seemed to have seen his chance to kill the Konoha ninja and make a great contribution. On the other side, Zaishu also showed a confident smile and took out a stack of detonating tags. Qishuang frowned when he saw this. He really didn't understand where these two simple-minded guys got the mysterious confidence to successfully kill their opponents and return to the camp of Kirigakure alive. Hide your breath and prepare for battle, Kamiyamu said with a serious face, and quickly hid in the bushes with a few people. Although he was not a professional perception ninja, as the strength of the ninja increased, its five senses were far superior to ordinary people. As long as the distance was not too far, he could also detect some movements. 10 meters in radius was almost his limit. However, this distance was a world of difference from the perception distance of professional perception ninjas. In the same way, he could detect the other party, and the other party could also detect him. If he turned around and ran away at this time, the result would be being chased and killed. He might be able to escape, but these three subordinates were basically dead. Moreover, if his superiors found out that he had maliciously abandoned his subordinates, he would be severely punished by the Hidden Mist village. Therefore, he could not escape, at least not when the enemy and us were unknown. Everything needed to be judged after the fight. There are 4 people on the other side. They should be the exploration team of Konoha. Kamiyamu said softly to his 3 subordinates with a vague feeling. Then, in his vague perception, the 4 people suddenly lost their sense when they were about to approach their woods. Be careful, they are coming, he warned in a low voice. There is no doubt that the other party also restrained their breath after feeling that they had entered the combat range in order to launch a surprise attack. At this time, ordinary ninja perception is useless. They can only roughly feel that the other party is coming, but they cannot sense the specific direction. The importance of professional perception ninjas was also experienced at this time. Rustle. After a slight sound, Qishuang saw a thin figure sticking out from the bushes 5 meters away. The man was wearing a green jacket and a forehead protector with a bird's beak mark on his forehead. Is it really Konoha? It's been a long time since I last saw it. Nanashi raised the corner of his mouth slightly. He was still a little excited about the battle with the ninja of Konoha. The story of Naruto is mainly based on Konoha village, where Uzumaki Naruto is located, so many readers have a special feeling for Konoha village. Nanashi is no exception. Unfortunately, he is now in Kirigakure village, which is in hostile relationship with Konoha. Even if he has a good impression of Konoha in his heart, that is in the past. He does not expect that the ninja of Konoha will let him go by relying on his good impression of Konoha. Now, it is a wartime. Only a dead enemy is a good enemy. As for defecting from Kirigakure to Konoha, he still had such an idea when he just arrived. However, when he learned about the attitude of each village towards the rebellious ninja, he no longer had that idea. In everyone's cognition, those who can defect once can naturally defect a second time, so each village will never believe in the loyalty of the rebellious ninja of his village. Another thing is to consider the safety of each village. What if the defector was a spy sent by another village? Therefore, in order to eliminate this risk, each village never accepts defectors from other villages. In the end, Nana Frost really didn't have the confidence to stop the hunting of the Kirigakure ninjas. Even in the original work, Biwajuzo, one of the 7 ninja swordsmen, never set foot on the territory of the Land of Water again after defecting from Kirigakure because he was afraid of the power of the Kirigakure ninjas. How dare he, a mere 10-year-old kid, do such a crazy act of betraying the village? It would be better for him to be his own Kirigakure ninja. Chapter 11 Battlefield. When Kamiyamu turned around and was about to instruct his 3 subordinates, he found that Umura and Natsuki had already rushed out first. Arseholes. He almost bit his teeth when he saw this scene. Those 2 guys were usually impatient, but they were still so brainless when they met the enemy. He just said that there should be 4 people on the opposite side, and only 1 person showed up, which was obviously a bait to lure them to attack and expose their whereabouts. But these 2 idiots, who were so obsessed with making merit, couldn't even see such a simple trick to lure the enemy, and just stupidly delivered themselves to the door. They were just like pig teammates. Go to hell, Konoha guys. Umura, who rushed to the front, immediately threw the kunai in his hand at the Konoha ninja. Clang clang. A series of crisp metal collision sounds came, and several dark kunai were scattered at the feet of the Konoha ninja. However, when the kunai was about to hit him, the opponent pulled out the short knife on his back and quickly knocked it down. Go to hell, bastard. At this moment, another slightly childish voice came from above his head. It was Zaishu, who took advantage of the time when Kamimura attracted the opponent's attention and launched a surprise attack from the top. This was a joint attack tactic that they had formulated long ago to deal with a single enemy. For this reason, they practiced privately many times until they were extremely proficient. They were confident that even if they faced Mr. Kamiya, they would have a chance of winning. Unfortunately, they had not encountered an enemy for half a month, which made them have a lot of ambitions to make achievements and a set of perfect tactics, but nowhere to display them, which was really depressing. Today, they finally encountered such a meat dish that was delivered to their doorstep. They were extremely happy and could no longer suppress their inner restlessness and decisively took action. Ding ding. Zaishu seized the opportunity and shot 3 kunai from the opponent's head, but they were still blocked by the opponent. Then, he saw the man raised his head and gave him a playful smile, and then disappeared in an instant. Kid, your speed is nothing in my eyes. A teasing voice fell into his ears, and Zaishu felt a strange chakra breath beside him. Zaishu, be careful. Umura reminded loudly. As a bystander, he saw it more clearly than his companions. After blocking Zaishu's kunai, the man bounced to the top of the tree trunk at a very fast speed and landed next to Zaishu. At the same time, hearing the warning and sensing the approach of an abnormal breath, Zaishu instinctively turned his head and saw a silver knife light filling his vision. In just a moment, he felt a little cool on his neck, as if something was ejected from it. He quickly covered his neck, but felt his whole body soft, as if he had no strength at all, and fell straight down from the tree trunk, and then everything in front of him was dark, and he had no consciousness. Zaishu was dead. Natsuki, Umura's eyes were about to burst. A living person who was still alive just now, a companion who was ready to work with him to make achievements, was separated from life and death in just a few breaths. On the other side, Nana Qishuang and Kamiyamu were also helpless. The two stupid teammates attacked too suddenly, and the opponent's counterattack was also too fast. They were unprepared and had no time to rescue. They could only watch Natsuki die on the spot. Water escape missed hidden technique at the moment. When Natsuki's body fell to the ground, Kamehameha's ninjutsu caught up. The water vapor in the air condensed rapidly, and with him as the center, a thick white fog quickly spread around, and in an instant, it enveloped a radius of 10 meters. "I'll save people, you cover." Kamehameha greeted Qishuang next to him, and rushed out of the bushes immediately. There were 4 people on the other side. Except for the one, whose whereabouts had been exposed, the other 3 should be like them, preparing for a surprise attack. The 2 idiots, Yumura and Natsuki, had exposed their whereabouts early, and they had undoubtedly become living targets for the other 3. He could no longer care about Natsuki's body. The only thing he could do was to try his best to save Umura's life. Without bothering to reply, Qishuang just nodded lightly, her fingers flying, and began to make seals, preparing to deal with the upcoming situation. Seeing that the forest was suddenly filled with thick fog, the reckless mist-hidden kid disappeared from sight. The 3 Konoha ninjas hiding in the dark looked at each other and immediately rushed out of the bushes and rushed straight to the place where the kid in their memory had landed. There was no doubt that these were the 2 mist-hidden ninjas hiding in the other side who took action. If they didn't take this opportunity to kill the reckless kid, they would have no chance later. The fog was very thick, and several people could only barely see a distance of about 2 meters around them. In order to avoid being attacked by the mist-hidden ninjas, they did not dare to disperse too much, and all included the figures of their companions in their sight. As they approached the target location in their memory, the 3 people caught the vague figure of the reckless kid again. "Don't be a ninja in your next life, kid," one of them groaned, and then the 3 of them took out several kunai and shot them directly at the blurry figure. On the other side, before Kamimura recovered from the sudden death of his companion, he found that the surroundings were foggy, and he could not see anything. An inexplicable fear quietly climbed up his heart. The white fog around him seemed like a beast that was choosing people to eat. His heart was in his throat. Whoosh! At this moment, a dense sound of breaking through the air came from the fog. Unfortunately, the fog was too thick. He heard the strange sound, but he did not find the source of the strange sound at the first time. He only felt a chill on his back. He sensed the danger and wanted to escape from here. However, he found that his 2 legs were completely out of control and were shivering. He could not take his master away from here. Am I going to die? Just when he was desperate, a familiar figure blocked him. That was their leader, Kamehameha. He was seen dancing wildly with a kunai in front of him, and then heard a clang sound, and a kunai fell to the ground beside him. At the same time, the inexplicable sense of crisis finally dissipated. "Teacher, Zashu." Kamimura burst into tears. Until now, he finally understood that the battlefield was not a fun place, nor was it a place where you could easily make achievements. Behind every person who killed the enemy and made achievements, no one knew how much bitterness and helplessness were hidden. Maybe they didn't think about making achievements, but just wanted to return to the hidden mist village safely. Now, this cruel reality was laid out nakedly in front of him, and he finally woke up. Maybe, returning safely has become a luxury. Extras should have the awareness of extras, right? Hahaha. Their treatment is good. As a teammate of Qishuang's extras, I at least gave them a name, which is much better than nameless. Don't ask teammates why they are so impulsive and why they are so cowardly when they really encounter problems. After all, they are only 10 years old and have just graduated from school. They are 100% rookies. I have laid the groundwork before. They are jealous of others who have killed enemies and made meritorious deeds, so they acted rashly. When he found out that Natsuki died so easily, Yumura found that the gap between his ideal and reality was too big. He was shocked and frightened, and couldn't even walk. This is not difficult to understand. For example, in the Land of Waves, when Naruto received the escort mission for the first time, and encountered the assassination by the Mist Ninja, you can understand his reaction before and after. After all, there are only a few people like Sasuke who can remain calm in danger. The reaction of Naruto and Sakura is the normal performance of rookies. Start the countdown. 1 kill. Chapter 12 Ice Needles. Let's go. After blocking the opponent's ninja tool, Kamiya took Kamimura's hand and was about to leave. "Want to leave? You two should stay together." A teasing voice came from the thick fog. The three Konoha ninjas were less than 3 meters away from the two. Although they couldn't see clearly through the thick fog, they could still barely see that someone suddenly appeared and blocked a fatal attack for the Kirigakure kid. It should be the kid's Kirigakure ninja partner. Ice release, needle rain technique. Just as the three were about to cast a spell to catch the two Kirigakure ninjas in one fell swoop, a wave of chakra suddenly came from the thick fog above their heads. It was Nanashiro launching a long prepared spell. Although he was not a caster and could not see the specific situation of Kamiya in the thick fog, the three people on the opposite side were not casters either. They could not use the thick fog to cover up their voices and chakra aura like Kamiya. That teasing voice, plus the chakra aura leaked in order to kill Kamimura and the other two, exposed their approximate position in the thick fog. Therefore, Qishuang launched his own technique without hesitation. He controlled the large amount of water vapor in the thick fog to condense quickly, and condensed into crystal 3-inch ice needles in midair, and then aimed at the approximate position of the three people from Konoha, and carried out covering shooting. In the thick fog, the Konoha ninja who was about to take action to leave Kamiya and Mew, after realizing that he had lost the initiative, immediately gave up the idea of casting the technique, and retreated together to guard against the enemy's attack. Unfortunately, Qishuang had been accumulating strength for a long time, and the range attack technique was used, so they had no chance to dodge at all. Several people even took 2 steps back without feeling that they had escaped the range of the opponent's technique. Then, there was an inexplicable feeling of palpitations above their heads. When they looked up, they saw a rain of needles formed by 3-inch long translucent needles. Seeing that there was no escape, the three people immediately protected their heads with one hand and waved the kunai in their hands desperately with the other hand, hoping to block some of the needles and reduce the damage of the opponent's technique to themselves. Crack. With the strange sound of the kunai colliding with the needles, several people suddenly felt as if they were stung by a group of wasps. In addition to the sharp pain, the places where the needles pierced them also felt a chill. After a while, several people felt cold hands and feet, stiff muscles, and slowed down their movements. On the other side, while the Konoha ninjas were temporarily repelled, Kamiya immediately pulled up the still crying Umura and retreated in a hurry. Then he called Nana Frost who was hiding in the bushes, and the three of them followed the way they came, turned back, and prepared to retreat. At the moment, because of the two stupid teammates, they lost the initiative in the battle, and with the death of Zaishu, Umura had no fighting spirit, and became a complete burden. Only Nana Frost and Kamiya still had the strength to fight. If they continued to entangle, they would have to fight 2 against 4, and they had to take care of Umura. The situation could be said to be extremely bad. If it lasted for a long time, I'm afraid that the three of them would not be able to survive. Although being chased by someone is a terrible thing, it is better than being 2 against 4, a situation where there is no hope of survival. As the three people evacuated, the thick fog in the forest quickly dissipated, and the rain of needles in the air stopped immediately. Until then, the three Konoha people who were attacked by sharp needles like rain, finally got rid of the dilemma in a mess. It seems that there is another ice escape blood limit ninja among them. Pulling out a bloody sharp needle from the body, one of them found that it was a needle formed by water condensation. They finally understood why they felt that cold feeling after being pricked by the needle and their body temperature dropped so quickly. Killing that blood limiter will definitely hurt the Kirigakure. Another Konoha ninja followed. What are you guys whispering about? At this moment, the Konoha ninja who killed Zaishu earlier came over with a displeased tone. Then, he looked at the three people covered in blood and frowned, saying, "You are so useless that you can't even catch a little ghost. If it weren't for..." Hearing this, one of them immediately showed his indignation, but before he finished speaking, another partner next to him immediately pulled him and winked at him. Then, he seemed to have thought of something and immediately suppressed his dissatisfaction and could only quietly glare at the red and white round fan emblem on the man's body. "Hurry up and treat your injuries, and we will chase them and kill them." Seeing that the three people were a little upset, the man couldn't say anything more, so he had to say this stiffly, and then turned back. to check the body of the fog-hidden ghost. I hope to find some useful information from it. On the other side, after the man left, the three people treated their injuries and started to murmur again. Isn't it just that I was born into a good family? What's so great about it? You keep pointing fingers at us every day. You know what? Just based on his eyes, he's really worth being proud of. Yes, without his eyes, we don't know how many times we would have died. After a sigh, the three of them fell into a brief silence. Not long after, they finished cleaning up their wounds. The wave of ice needle attacks looked dense and scary, but it was actually just that. Without enough speed and power, it could only penetrate an inch into the skin, which was not enough to kill people immediately. Apart from leaving them with a body of scary flesh wounds, there was basically no big deal. At this time, they even regretted it a little. If they had understood this at the time, and had endured this round of attacks, and launched an offensive, perhaps they could have taken down both of them. On the other side, the man who was searching for Zaishu's body also shook his head helplessly. A child is just a child after all. It is impossible for him to know too much information about Kirigakure, and it is impossible for him to leave any useful clues on his body. In the end, he found nothing. Afterwards, seeing that the three were well equipped, he immediately led his companions and followed the trail left by Qishuang and the others when they retreated. On the way, he solemnly said to the three people, according to my observation, among the remaining three, only one is a little older, and I guess he has the strength of a chunin. The other two are not very old, and I think they should be the same year companions of the kid who died earlier. They are two genin rookies. With the two of them dragging him down, the chunin can't run fast. I think it's better to split the troops into two groups, one to rush to the front to intercept, and the other to continue to follow the trail, to prevent them from changing the route temporarily. Well, that's a good idea. One person nodded immediately. The other two also kept silent and did not object. Seeing this, the four people immediately divided into two groups, 2 people in each group. After a discussion, the group that had killed Zaishu earlier accelerated to the front to ambush, and the other group stayed behind to follow the trail. Chapter 13 Interception. You are really amazing. Glancing at the kid next to him, Kamihamu was surprised again. At your age, you can actually perform such a large-scale ninjutsu? He had created the thick fog before. Just because others couldn't see what was going on inside didn't mean he couldn't see it. Qishuang's ice needle technique, that covered a wide area, was completely seen by him. Teacher Mew, you overestimate me. Hearing this, Qishuang smiled bitterly and said, originally, with my chakra, it is not enough to create such a large-scale ice escape technique. But your mist hiding technique just provided me with convenience. I just processed the large amount of water vapor condensed by you, and then created the rain of ice needles. It seems like I'm taking advantage of the situation. Then, he touched his nose and said embarrassedly, besides, my technique only looks intimidating, but its actual killing power is very limited. I estimate that they will catch up soon. Teacher, you'd better find a way. After that, he looked solemnly at the young teacher next to him with a heavy heart. Hearing his words, Kamihamu turned his head and glanced at the depressed Umura who was following behind, and thought to himself, this kid has no fighting spirit at all. If he stays with us, I'm afraid we will both be dragged to death by him. Then, he looked at the small hill in front of him, estimated the distance between them and the front camp of Kirigakure, and said loudly to the two, as long as we climb over the small hill in front, we will be not far from the Kirigakure front base camp. I guess those people should not chase over that hill. Hearing this, Umura, who had been silent all the time, raised his head, and his eyes became more lively. Kamihamu breathed a sigh of relief. As long as Umura was not completely desperate, everything could still be saved. Then, he said to him solemnly, Qishuang and I will stay behind to cover the rear, and be responsible for containing the enemy. You speed up, and return to the camp, to bring us a reinforcement. Can you do it? Yes. Yes. Hearing that Teacher Mew and the others were going to cover the rear and let him escape alone, Umura suppressed his joy and nodded in agreement. Fearing that he would be slow in one move, he asked the teacher to change the plan and not let him go to get reinforcement, but to stay behind to cover the retreat. Seeing his slightly excited look, Kamihamu felt more and more annoyed and immediately waved his hand and said, okay. You sprint at full speed now and go back to get reinforcement for us. Yes. Then I'll go ahead. Shanken nodded again and said to the two of them confidently, I will definitely bring reinforcement to meet you. Before he finished speaking, he had already accelerated and rushed several meters away. Qishuang, who fell behind, said to the young teacher with a little concern, he won't run away and ignore us, right? It's no wonder he thought so. After all, Shanken is a child under 10 years old. He just felt the fear of life and death so close, and it's not impossible for him to do something irrational now. Even adult armies often have deserters, let alone such a frightened child. Kirigakure sighed, continued to move forward at the current speed, and said helplessly, in his state, even if he stays, he will only drag us down, so it's better to let him go first. If he really brings reinforcement, it's of course a cause for celebration, but if he escapes from the battlefield, the pursuit ninjas of Kirigakure will not be vegetarians. Especially now that it's a wartime state, the higher-ups are paying close attention to the battle on the front line. No one can retreat from the battlefield. As he said this, he looked at the little subordinates who followed him very seriously. But if he only cares about escaping for his own life, then won't we be in trouble? Qishuang frowned. He didn't have much affection for the companion he had only known for a few days. He didn't care about the consequences of the other party's escape from the battlefield. He was more worried about his own life. Kirigakure looked at him deeply and then said, there are only 4 people in the Konoha team. As long as you and I work together, even if we are not their opponents, it will not be easy for them to take us down in a short time. Then, he looked at the hill that was getting closer and closer and continued, this place is not far from our base camp. As long as we make a bigger noise in the battle, even if there is no help from the upper village, the camp will definitely send people to check. So, we just need to delay the battle. Hearing that there is still a way out, Qishuang breathed a sigh of relief. He was afraid of encountering a great teacher who sacrificed himself for others. In order to let the weaker students escape, he was willing to sacrifice their lives. Although it sounds very glorious, he didn't want to die young. His ninja career has just begun, and there is a brighter and more glorious future waiting for him. It's really a bit aggrieved to die here inexplicably. On the other side, with the permission of Mr. Yumura ran towards the Kirigakure camp with all his strength without caring about his own physical strength. He didn't know whether Mr. Mu and Qishuang could stop the pursuers behind him, but he knew that, as long as he ran faster and escaped back to the camp before the people of Konoha caught up, he would be safe. Just when he arrived at the foot of the hill, a faint voice came from somewhere. Little boy, didn't your teacher tell you that, if you run too fast, it is easy to ignore the movements around you and be ambushed? Then, a silver light suddenly flashed out from the forest. Not good. Hearing this strange voice, and seeing the cold light, Yumura's heart sank to the bottom of the valley. However, as the other party said, his speed was too fast, which had exceeded the limit of his control and he couldn't stop immediately. He could only watch the light coming towards him, and he had no time to dodge. It was in front of him in an instant. Then he felt a chill on his neck, and he felt his strength disappear instantly. His body fell forward uncontrollably, and he fell to the ground, and could no longer move. Is this the feeling of death? With such a regretful thought flashing through his mind, Kimimura stopped breathing. After the brilliance, there was another Konoha ninja next to Kimimura's body. He gently shook off the blood on the blade, put it back into the sheath, and said slowly, this is the second one, there are 2 more. After that, he looked at the direction from which Kimimura came, his eyes full of confidence. On the other side, although Qishuang and the other 2 were also heading towards the headquarters of Kirigakure, they did not dare to let go of their speed completely, in order to guard against sudden enemy attacks and to ensure that they would be in good condition to meet the enemy when caught up by the people of Konoha, and could only move forward cautiously. Suddenly, Kirigakure said to Qishuang, go to the right, there is a lot of water vapor over there. Second kill. There is something I'm very curious about. How did you find my book? I can't even find it on the new book list. Chapter 14 Geographical Advantage. HMM. Qishuang was stunned for a moment. Although he was a little confused, he still did as he was told and changed his route to the right. Is it the people from Konoha who caught up with us? After thinking for a while, he asked tentatively. If there was no sudden situation, Kamiyamu should not have suddenly changed his route. After all, they were walking in a straight line at the moment. Changing the route meant taking a long detour, which would delay the time to return to the Kirigakure camp. Moreover, Kamiyamu chose the right side, the direction with heavier water vapor, not the left side. This shows that the other party is more eager to get closer to the water environment. And for most Kirigakure ninjas, the existence of water sources means that it is convenient to use water escape, which is more suitable for their own battles. Now, at this moment when the sooner you return to the Kirigakure camp, the safer it will be, Kamiyamu is willing to take a long detour to get closer to the water source, which makes Qishuang think of this terrible possibility. Someone is catching up with us from behind, Kamiyamu said to him solemnly, and his pace became faster. Then, Qishuang immediately collected his mind and was in high spirits, because the battle is about to come. Not long after the two changed their route, a playful voice came from far behind them. Why don't you two come back with us to Konoha's camp and let us treat you well? Qishuang turned around when she heard the voice, only to see two Konoha ninjas catching up with them from behind, running much faster than them, and the distance between them was getting shorter and shorter. Don't look back, focus on your feet. Hearing Kamiyamu's warning, Qishuang immediately retracted her gaze and quickened her pace. Perhaps in order to adjust her own state, the Konoha ninja who caught up with Qishuang and the others first did not rush to approach and launch an attack, but just slowed down a little and followed far behind. At the same time, Qishuang also faintly heard a sound of rushing water. Another chase, as the sound of the water became louder and louder, rushing out of the jungle, a surging river appeared in front of the two. The terrain was ready, and Qishuang knew that Kamiyamu was preparing to counterattack. You are too weak. I don't expect you to do anything. Just harass them from the side. Glancing at the child next to him, Kamiyamu leaped up, then forcibly turned back in midair, facing the pursuers behind him, and quickly formed a set of hand seals with his hands. Water style, water dragon bullet technique. Then, Qishuang saw a column of water quickly surge up behind Kamiyamu, who had just landed on the river surface, and the top of the water condensed into a dragon head. Then, it seemed to come alive, dragging its long body, breaking through the water directly, passing over his head, and directly attacking the two Konoha ninjas who were chasing behind. Looking at the sudden attack of the water dragon, the two Konoha ninjas remained calm. One of them sneered, "No wonder you suddenly changed direction. It turns out that you want to come to the river to fight us." Then, he immediately stopped, formed a set of hand seals, and immediately pressed his palm to the ground, injecting chakra into the ground. Earth escape. Earth flow wall. A 3-meter high earth wall rose up in front of him, blocking the route of the water dragon. His other companion also took advantage of the situation, and hid behind his earth wall. Boom. The light blue water dragon dragged its long body and hit the thick earth wall without hesitation, and a deafening sound came from the air. Qishuang looked closely and saw that the earth wall did not move at all, but the water dragon was blown apart by the recoil force at the moment of collision, and water splashed everywhere, like a heavy rain, washing all the surrounding trees, which seemed to be more green. What's wrong? Is this all the people of Kirigakure have? Leaping onto the earth wall, a Konoha ninja squatted on it and taunted Kamiyamu on the river. Then, his other companion slowly turned out from behind the earth wall, staring expressionlessly at the two Kirigakure ninjas, one big and one small. Be careful. Ignoring the other party's ridicule, Kamiyamu warned the child who fell beside him, and then launched another ninjutsu. Water style, mist hidden technique. The river water under his feet rolled, and countless mists rose from the water surface, and a thick white fog suddenly formed. Annoying. Seeing this scene, a Konoha ninja frowned. Facing this signature ninjutsu of the hidden mist village, he did not dare to be careless. Neither of them was a professional perception type ninja. After being blocked by this thick fog, it was impossible to capture the other party's trace. If you are not careful, you will be attacked by others. In addition, this technique of the hidden mist village is very special. It is not an ordinary fog at all. Ordinary wind style cannot blow it away, and there is no precedent for it being cracked. Therefore, facing this technique, both of them are very passive. Then, under Kamiyamu's control, the thick fog spread to the surroundings. In just a blink of an eye, it covered the surrounding area of dozens of meters. Qishuang could not see anything except a vast expanse of white, with visibility less than 2 meters. The effect was even better than the previous time, when Teacher Mew performed it. It seems that the effect of this mist hidden technique has also been greatly enhanced due to the surrounding water vapor, he secretly exclaimed. In addition to Taiga, Forest, and the 2 ninjas from Konoha, Mew also disappeared from his sight. He could barely feel a trace of chakra from the 2 Konoha ninjas, but he could not feel Mew's chakra and movements at all. Is this the silent killing technique? He secretly guessed, and also tried his best to restrain his chakra. Born in Kirigakure, he naturally knew Kirigakure's signature assassination technique, which mainly consisted of the mist hidden technique and the silent killing technique. But he had only heard of it, and this was the first time he had truly seen it. The mist hidden technique blocks sight and smell, and also conceals the chakra breath of the caster. In addition, the sound of the silent killing technique is covered. Unless you have professional perception ability, no one can find a mist hidden ninja in the thick fog. However, although the combination of these 2 techniques is very clever, the disadvantages are also obvious. Because the mist hidden technique cannot conceal the chakra fluctuations generated when using ninjutsu, it can only conceal the chakra breath under normal circumstances. In this state, if the mist hidden ninja wants to kill someone, he cannot use ninjutsu, and can only rely on pure physical attack, otherwise he will expose his position. But if the opponent's physical skills are very strong, then this kind of physical attack will not have much meaning, but will be dangerous. I hope the physical skills of those 2 people are not too strong. At present, he can only pray for his teacher like this. Ding ding. In the thick fog, 2 metal collision sounds came, and Qishuang guessed that it should be Mew fighting with the opponent. After thinking for a while, he tried his best to restrain his breath, and tiptoed to the direction where the sound came from. Although he was not the caster of the thick fog, it naturally blocked the view. As long as he did not act rashly, it would be difficult for his opponent to detect his presence. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15 Plot. After a burst of ninja tools clashing, the air fell into an eerie silence. Apart from the sound of the rushing river, Qishuang could hardly hear anything. It seems that Teacher Mew didn't succeed. He thought secretly. At this moment, a breath of chakra suddenly appeared behind him. It's coming so fast. He was startled and stabbed a kunai behind him without hesitation. He hurriedly blocked his counterattack. The person who came took advantage of the sound of the river and shouted in a low voice, "Don't be nervous, it's me." Hearing this, Qishuang stopped struggling and glanced at the person behind him. He was familiar. Although the fog was thick, the distance between the 2 was less than 1 meter, and he could barely recognize the person's appearance. It was Mew. Then, he put away the kunai he stretched out and asked in a low voice, "Teacher, how did the fight go?" At the moment, they were standing on the river, with the sound of the rushing river as a cover. As long as they kept their voices down, the 2 people on the opposite side would not be able to hear their location. The situation is not optimistic. Mew shook his head and sighed. If there was only one of them, I could have launched continuous sneak attacks and maybe defeated them. But now there are 2 of them, attacking and defending each other. My offensive was easily resolved by them, and if I'm not careful, they might take advantage of the situation and take me down. If I could separate them. Separate? Qishuang frowned and thought for a while, then replied solemnly, "Maybe I can try." At this moment, the shouting and cursing of 2 Konoha ninjas came from the other side of the fog. "Aren't you Kirigakure very good at assassination? Why don't you dare to come again after just 2 attempts? Is it because you haven't learned the assassination technique yet, and you're going to cry and go back to your teacher to retrain yourself?" Then, the 2 people's shrill arrogant laughter pierced the blockade of the thick fog. Mew frowned, feeling very uneasy. As a veteran on the battlefield, he certainly couldn't be tricked by the other party's simple provocation, but hearing the other party's ridicule, he felt uncomfortable after all. Then, He turned back and whispered to his subordinates, "What do you want to do?" Qishuang smiled slightly and then whispered in Kamiyaki's ear. After hearing this, Kamiyaki frowned and said, "I'm fine, but you're in danger." Qishuang glanced at the direction where the two people from Konoha had just communicated and said, "Fortune is sought in danger. If you can get rid of these two people, you will definitely be praised when you go back. Besides," as soon as he changed his voice, he said with a serious face, "besides, they should have 4 people, but now there are only 2 here. Although we don't know what the other 2 guys are doing, if we can't get rid of these 2 guys before they arrive, you should understand the consequences." Hearing this, Kamiyaki's heart also skipped a beat. No wonder he felt something was wrong before. Now, after hearing what the other party said, he realized that there were 2 fewer people on the Konoha side. It's really a blind spot. He smiled bitterly and shook his head. "I was only thinking about how to defeat my opponent, but I ignored such obvious information. Okay, let's do as you say." He immediately nodded and agreed to Qishuang's plan. Because of the presence of the other 2, he could only choose to fight quickly. If he waited until the 4 of them joined together, it would be difficult for the 2 of them to survive. Then you should be careful, don't die in the hands of others, before I come back to help. After saying that, Kamiyamu disappeared into the thick fog again. "Don't worry, they are just at the level of Chunin. It's not so easy to kill me one-on-one. If you underestimate me." Looking at the direction where the young teacher disappeared, Qishuang's words had not yet finished, and a confident smile appeared on his face. Ice release, needle rain technique. After a quick seal, he used the thick fog condensed in the air by Kamiyamu to perform the ice release ninjutsu again. Then, he controlled the ice needles condensed by the water mist in the air, aimed at the approximate position of the 2 people, and carried out a covering attack. On the other side, the ice needles attacked again. The 2 Konoha ninjas were stunned for a moment, and then they waved their short swords wildly, hoping to minimize their own injuries. After all, the attack of the ice needles was too dense, and they really couldn't block them all. Hearing the sound of breaking ice from the short swords, the 2 looked at each other, followed the chakra fluctuations emitted by the other party because of the ninjutsu, slowly moved over, and loudly mocked, "That little kid who uses ice escape, your ninjutsu is too weak. It can't even pierce my skin. You should go home and eat milk." Then, his companions also cooperated very well, and made a piercing laugh. It seemed that they couldn't stand their ridicule, and the ice needle attacks in the air suddenly increased in speed and density. Feeling the increasingly clear chakra fluctuations, one of them made a gesture to his companion, who was close at hand, and then protected his head with one hand, held the sword with the other hand, and rushed out instantly against the ice needles. At this moment, a black Kune suddenly appeared next to the man. That was Kamiyamu taking advantage of the situation to launch an attack on the Konoha ninja who suddenly moved. Ding. A crisp sound came, and it was the man who suddenly stopped and turned around to block his attack. "My target is not that kid at all, but you. His target is that kid." A playful voice fell into his ears, and Kamiyamu realized that another Konoha ninja took advantage of the time when he was dragged and rushed towards the 7 frosts on the river surface with ice needles. Then, he immediately abandoned his opponent and retreated into the thick fog again. As if thinking that he was going to turn around to rescue his subordinates, the Konoha ninja laughed and said, "It's too late. The little brat is just a little brat after all. With his strength, he can't withstand this round of attacks at all." As he was talking, a pitch black Kune attacked him from behind again. As if sensing the danger, he instinctively dodged to the side, avoiding the vital points, and a palm-long cut was immediately cut on his shoulder. For a moment, blood poured out, staining half of the sleeve red. Then, a sarcastic voice came from the thick fog. "Who told you that I would go back to rescue? Isn't this the best opportunity to kill you?" "What?" The man was a little surprised. After thinking about it, he immediately understood the reason. Previously, the 2 of them worked together to prevent the other party from finding a chance to attack. And now, although the ice escape kid used ninjutsu to expose his position and gave them a chance to attack, their separation also gave the other party a chance to attack alone. Now, as long as the other party kills the kid with assassination before he dies, they can go back to support him and kill his other companion 1 against 2. I suddenly realized that I can't write that kind of feeling of deep hatred. I'm not very good at attracting hatred. Is it because I'm too calm? Chapter 16 Withering. After figuring everything out, the injured Konoha ninja quickly adjusted his mentality. While being cautious, he mocked unscrupulously, "What a ruthless captain." He actually used the lives of his subordinates as bait in exchange for the opportunity to kill me alone. Are you so confident that you can kill me before that kid dies? Or do you not care at all? Before he finished speaking, a Kyune suddenly appeared from the side. He quickly blocked this sneak attack. Kamiyaji returned empty-handed again. "Are you angry out of shame?" The injured man laughed unscrupulously and said, "You don't care about his life or death at all?" Although the laughter was so harsh, Kamiyaji, who was hidden in the fog, still did not answer. He continued to concentrate on looking for the next opportunity to attack. The current situation is very clear. Whether it is him or the other Konoha ninja rushing to Qishuang, as long as they can kill their opponents first, they can turn around and save their companions. What they are competing is the killing speed of both sides. On the other side, the Konoha ninja, enduring the pain of the ice needles, had already rushed to the front of the caster. Looking at the frightened child in front of him, he raised his short sword, with a sneer on his face, and said, "Kid, your technique is too weak. Otherwise, I can't get close to you so easily. One more thing, didn't your teacher tell you that using ninjutsu in this fog will expose your position?" Before he finished speaking, he quickly slashed with a knife. The blade fell from the opponent's head without any hindrance, splitting it in half cleanly. Seeing this scene, he was stunned for a moment. He never remembered that he had such a divine power that he could use an ordinary ninja sword to split a person alive. Then, in his surprised eyes, the two halves of the human body immediately turned into two clear streams and flowed upstream along his blade. "Water clone," he exclaimed, and immediately understood what happened just now. "Do you think that I, as a Kirigakure ninja, really don't know that using ninjutsu in this fog will expose my whereabouts?" At this moment, a childish mocking voice came from above, and he felt something falling from the sky. At the same time, the two clear streams flowing upstream along the blade also burst out a wave of chakra. Ice style, ice binding technique. Feeling a chill coming from the blade, he looked down and saw that the two clear streams condensed into two ice ropes, one end of which sank into the water and the end could not be seen, and the other end was going along the blade and entwined on his arm. Obviously, the opponent used the clear stream left by the water clone just now to perform the second stage of the technique. In just a moment, the frost rope bound both of his hands holding the handle of the knife. As if sensing the danger of his own defeat, he struggled hard and shouted, "What a joke, how could I lose to you, little brat?" Then, he broke one of the seemingly indestructible frost ropes and freed up an arm. At this moment, the thing falling from the fog above his head also revealed its true form. It was a person, a child. Obviously, the opponent took advantage of the fog to attack him from the sky when he was tied up by the ice ropes. Unfortunately, although the opponent had a careful plan, he overestimated the strength of his own technique. The two ice ropes were not enough to completely trap him. "Little brat, you underestimated me too much, and you overestimated yourself too much." Without having time to draw out the kunai, he immediately clenched the freed left hand into a fist and blasted it at the child holding the kunai above his head. "Ha ha ha, ha ha ha, ha 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 ha. Kid, your arm is too short. Ha ha." Below, the Konoha ninja laughed wildly, and his fist hit the target before the opponent's kunai. Because the boy's arm was shorter, he was hit by his fist first. Before he could be happy for too long, the figure on his fist broke into a pool of clear water and splashed on his face, completely extinguishing his joy. Another water clone. His smile froze on his face. Not only that, he also noticed a very special situation. The kunai that the opponent had just held in his hand did not turn into water as the clone disintegrated. It still maintained its original appearance and exuded an extremely dangerous aura. When the kunai fell in front of him, he could see clearly that there was a detonating talisman wrapped around the handle of the kunai. He wanted to escape, but his other hand was still tied by an ice rope, and the other end of the ice rope was tied to an unknown place, so he couldn't move at all. The detonating kunai was already in front of him, and even if he could break free, it would be too late. Boom. The detonating talisman completely exploded. Red flames appeared in front of his eyes, deafening sounds blocked his ears, and a huge impact force hit him. The ice rope in his hand was shattered in an instant, and he couldn't hold his body at all, allowing him to be blown away by the explosion. At this moment, a thin figure broke out of the water and rushed towards his body that was thrown away. Then, he suddenly felt a chill in his back, and a cold breath filled his chest, completely covering up the burning sensation of being injured by the explosion. At this critical moment, someone held him tightly from behind and hid behind him with his body, avoiding the direct impact of the explosion. However, the impact of the explosion should not be underestimated. The two of them couldn't stand at all and were directly pushed out by the shockwave. The aftermath of the explosion soon subsided, and the turbulent fog returned to calm again. They were not dispelled by the impact of the detonating talisman. The mist hiding technique once again proved its strength with actual practice. That was not a fog that could be dispelled casually. Cough, cough, cough. A painful cough was heard. In the thick fog, two figures, one big and one small, stood on the water. The big one was a ninja from Konoha, the small one was Nanashi. Nanashi was holding a kunai in both hands, pressing it against the back of the Konoha man, with the handle not even halfway in. The bright red blood flowed out of the kunai, staining the man's clothes and arms red. After a short silence, the man from Konoha asked weakly, "Did you know that the second clone couldn't take me down?" Qishuang replied coldly, "I have never underestimated you, nor have I overestimated myself. So, I never expected that ice escape to completely trap you. Nor did I expect the second clone to successfully sneak attack and kill you. That was all to make the detonating talisman work to its maximum effect and pave the way for my final blow." After saying that, he expressionlessly loosened his hands and dodged to the side. The man from Konoha immediately collapsed and knelt on the water. The bright red blood flowed into the river, and a huge red blood flower bloomed in the water. The man was like the stamen of the flower. Even the thick fog could not stop it from blooming. Unfortunately, it was about to wither. I feel that the later battles are easier to write. In the early stage, because Qishuang's level was relatively low, his strength was not enough, and he had to make up for it with his IQ. It gave me a headache to write. Like the fourth ninja war, or relying on big moves. IQ can't make up for the difference in strength. That kind of thing is easier to write. Chapter 17 back. What's your name, kid? Cough cough cough. With barely holding on to his last breath, the man from Konoha knelt on the water and turned his head with difficulty. "My name is Qishuang." Qishuang replied expressionlessly. Facing a dying person, he didn't mind giving the last bit of mercy. "Very good, very good." Hearing his answer, the man slowly turned his head, as if his wish had come true. He exhaled his last breath, and the chakra on his body was no longer under control. The whole person's body seemed to sink slowly but quickly into the river and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Except for the scarlet flowers that were getting lighter and lighter in the water, there was nothing to prove that he had ever existed. Is this what it feels like to kill someone? After the other person's figure completely disappeared, Qishuang raised his hands tremblingly. Mottled bloodstains covered his arms, which were the traces left after a flower of life withered. This was the first person he killed with his own hands. Although he knew that such a day would come after becoming a ninja and made sufficient psychological preparations, when he really faced this day, he still couldn't let it go. A fresh life was taken away by him just like that. However, he had no choice. This was a battlefield, not a martial arts competition. Only by killing the other party could he survive. If he let the other party go out of his heart, he didn't know if his kindness could be repaid by others. He was unwilling to gamble on the kindness of his enemy, even if that person came from Konoha, a place he had special feelings for. Only a dead enemy could make him feel at ease. He convinced himself in this way, trying to calm the uneasiness caused by killing. On the other side, the remaining Konoha ninja was still struggling under Kamiyaki's attack, which made Kamiyaki, who was eager to kill the other party and rushed to Ninashiro's side for support, anxious. "Did you hear the explosion just now?" The Konoha man was on guard and taunted. "Perhaps your little subordinate has been blown to pieces by my companion. I advise you to run for your life." If my companion drives you back, we will be 2 against 1, and you won't be able to leave, even if you want to. He tried his best to shake the opponent's psychological defense, hoping to delay the opponent's offensive for a while, or to scare the opponent away directly, and resolve the crisis in front of him. As long as his companion kills a little devil, and comes back to help, everything will be solved. Hearing this, Kamiyamu, who was hiding in the thick fog, couldn't help but feel nervous. Nanashiro was just a newly graduated genin, and the opponent was a Konoha ninja of the Chunin level. It was already a struggle to delay the opponent. He didn't think Nanashiro had a chance to win. Now, some time has passed. According to his estimation of the level of genin, it was already the limit for him to hold on until now under the hands of a Chunin. And just after the explosion, there was no more movement, and he had a bad feeling in his heart. Could it be that the boy is really dead? He couldn't help but guess secretly. After his words, the attack of the Kirigakure ninja stopped immediately, and the Konoha ninja couldn't help but feel happy. It seems that my words worked. He raised the corners of his mouth. As long as they hold on like this, and wait for their companions to return, their victory will be a foregone conclusion. He didn't think that the kid who was barely a genin could kill his tuning companion. At this moment, a rustling sound of footsteps came from the thick fog. He shouted in surprise, "Did you kill that kid?" "Yes, I did." A slightly hoarse voice came from the fog. "What's wrong with your voice?" he asked in surprise. On the other side of the fog, the hoarse voice slowly said, "Just now, that kid wanted to use a detonation tag to die with me. Fortunately, I was alert and kept my eyes open, so I escaped. It's just that, because the distance was too close, I still didn't completely avoid it, and my throat was smoked by the smoke." "Oh, so that's it." His mind was clear. Just now, there was indeed an explosion. It turned out that the kid wanted to die together. Ding. A familiar sound of metal collision came. That was someone fighting again. At this time, the urgent call of a companion came from the other side of the thick fog. "Come and help quickly, I'm seriously injured. That big guy attacked me." Then, a series of metal collisions came from the thick fog. It turned out that the remaining mist ninja was taking advantage of his companion's injury to launch a swift offensive, trying to kill one before they joined. No wonder that guy didn't move after hearing us sending messages to each other. He thought silently. Without a doubt, he immediately rushed in that direction and shouted, "Wait for me, I'll be there soon." As he approached the source of the battle, he saw a figure covered in blood, trying his best to resist the inexplicable attack in the thick fog. Ding. He quickly rushed to his companion's side, immediately blocked another attack from the mist ninja, and asked loudly, "Are you okay? I'm not dead yet. But, it's probably impossible for the 2 of us to take down the remaining guy. We can only protect ourselves." The companion replied slightly frustrated. "It doesn't matter, just wait until the 2 of them. Be careful." Before he finished speaking, his companion pushed him away, causing him to stagger and almost fall to the ground. "You want to kill me?" Steadying his figure, he immediately turned around and cursed. In the face of an enemy who could attack at any time, any omission could lead to his own death. If the man in the fog had seized the opportunity just now to attack, he would most likely have died. So, he was somewhat fortunate that the man in the fog did not seize the opportunity just now. Otherwise, he would have been killed by his own people. Strangely, the moment he turned around, he saw his companions retreating quickly and were immediately submerged in the thick fog and disappeared. He was about to say something, but a warning suddenly came to his mind, and an extremely dangerous aura came from behind him. Boom. Just as he was about to look back, there was a sudden explosion behind him, and a huge impact force was transmitted into his chest, shaking his limbs and numb, and immediately threw him out. He was defenseless, and was immediately blown to the ground by the explosion that was so close. Then, the thick fog around him quickly dissipated at a speed visible to the naked eye, and it disappeared completely in just a few breaths. Lying on the ground, he tried his best to raise his head, looking at his companion not far away and questioning unwillingly, why? The sudden explosion just now happened behind him. The mist-hidden ninja hidden in the fog had not touched his back, and only his companion just now had touched his back. There was no doubt that it was his companion who did it. Chapter 18 Drama Queen. You are too confident. A cold word came out of his companion's mouth. He was surprised to see a white smoke rising from his wounded companion, revealing a short figure. It was Qishuang. You. How could it be? The Konoha ninja on the ground widened his eyes in disbelief. At this point, he still didn't understand that the companion who almost killed him just now was not his own person, but the Kirigakure kid who used the transformation technique to transform. It was the Kirigakure genin who should have died at the hands of his companion. Time went back to after the explosion, when the rustling footsteps appeared on the battlefield. Did you kill that guy? Kamiya asked in surprise as he quietly came to the person. Although the fog was so thick that his vision was almost zero, as a caster, he was not affected by the fog at all. When he heard the sudden footsteps, he realized from a distance that the person who came was his subordinate Qishuang. Qishuang made a gesture to keep silent, pointed to the other side of the thick fog, and then whispered, "Fortunately, I have fulfilled my mission and killed that guy by chance." Then he asked again, "Teacher, how is the situation on your side?" Kamiya sighed and said helplessly, "My strength is similar to his. Although I have the advantage of the mist hiding technique to suppress him now, it will take some time to really get rid of him." Hearing this, Qishuang glanced at the other side of the thick fog again. His eyes turned, and he immediately had an idea in his mind. Then, he whispered, "The teacher's sight is not affected by the fog. He can see that I'm here, but that guy can't see it. I guess he will think that I was killed by that Konoha ninja. Why don't I take advantage of his trick and change into the appearance of his companion, take the opportunity to get close to him, and then wait for an opportunity to attack?" "Yeah." Kamiya nodded, secretly happy. "This is a good idea. You change into the appearance of his companion and attack. He will definitely not be prepared." With the teacher's approval, Nanashi immediately pinched the seal and used the transformation technique to change into the appearance of the Konoha ninja he had just killed. In order to make all this look more real and not let him doubt, "Teacher, you will attack me now and lead him to support me." Nanashi, who turned into the enemy, added in a hoarse voice, "Okay." As soon as the voice fell, Kamiya disappeared into the thick fog again. With the sound of Kune colliding, the two began to perform a chase scene. Then, the remaining Konoha ninja heard the urgent cry for help from his companion. Everything went as planned. Qishuang arrived at the opponent's side smoothly, while pretending to push the opponent away. To avoid Kamiya's sneak attack, she attached a detonating tag to the opponent's back. With the power of the detonating tag, he was severely injured in one fell swoop. Seeing the other party's unbelievable look, Qishuang looked at him coldly and said sarcastically, "Chunin, can you kill a genin 100%? You underestimate me too much and overestimate yourselves too much. Although Chunin is stronger than genin, they are all mortals. Once they are hit in the vitals, they will die. There will be no different changes, because one is a Chunin and the other is a genin. The real difference between the two is that Chunin is stronger, and it is easier to hit the vitals of genin, while genin is the opposite. Therefore, if a Chunin is hit in the vitals by a genin, he will also die." You. Hearing his sarcasm, the man was so angry that he vomited another mouthful of blood. He was already breathing out more and breathing in less. Nanashi looked at Kamiya next to him and said solemnly, "Teacher, two of them are still missing, but we probably can't hide the fighting here from them. To prevent the night from getting long and dreaming, I think we should kill him quickly and leave here. It will be very troublesome if it's too late. The guy who killed Zayashu with one blow, I think he is very dangerous." Although they only met briefly, Nanashi felt that among the four ninjas of Konoha, only that person was the most dangerous. It is very likely that he is a strong man at the level of Jonin. The level of a ninja is not a game level, it is a symbol of one's own ability and the affirmation of others. In accordance with the laws of nature, the higher the level, the stronger the ninja, but such strong people are becoming more and more rare, and the gap between each level is becoming more and more obvious. Facing the Chunin, Nanashi still has the courage to fight, but facing the Jonin, he really doesn't have that confidence. The gap in hard power is too big, and wisdom cannot make up for it. If Kamiya, a Chunin, could still fight off 2 moves and possibly survive against such a being, then as a genin, his chance of survival would be infinitely close to 0. The biggest possibility is that he would be killed in 1 move, just like Natsuki who died earlier. Kamiya looked at this subordinate in surprise, walked to the dying Konoha ninja, and said slowly, "Your intuition is right. That guy is really dangerous." As he said that, he took out a kunai and aimed at his opponent's neck. Perhaps because he was too badly injured by the explosion, the Konoha ninja tried his best to open his mouth to beg for mercy, but he couldn't say a complete sentence at all, and could only scream. Then, in his horrified eyes, Kamiya chopped off the kunai very cleanly and cut his throat in an instant. If that idiot hadn't been so careless that he was killed by a genin kid. If we had chosen to intercept them in front, instead of following them from behind. If we hadn't chosen to chase them down in the first place. If. The past scenes replayed in front of his eyes like a revolving lantern. After struggling for a while, the pupils of the second Konoha ninja quickly dilated, and he swallowed his last breath unwillingly. I thought that all ninjas were ready to die. Looking at the opponent's fingers gradually loosening, Qishuang shook his head. Although he didn't really hear what the other party said, from the expression and mouth shape of the man just now, he should be begging for mercy. Kamiya wiped the blood on the kunai with the other party's clothes, and said helplessly, "There are all kinds of birds in the forest. Besides, facing a life and death crisis, how many people can really remain indifferent? Everyone has selfish desires, and it's not shameful to be greedy for life and afraid of death. What's shameful is, what will you do for this life?" As he said that, he looked at his subordinate solemnly. "I don't know." Qishuang answered very straightforwardly. He was very afraid of death, and had a strong desire to survive, which he knew very well. If not, he would not have created 2 consecutive water clones to confuse his opponent. However, he also knew that sometimes, survival was not everything. Therefore, he might do whatever it takes to survive, or he might give up survival for something else. Therefore, he didn't know what he would do when faced with that moment. Chapter 19. Stop again. Let's go. Kamiya walked around the corpse lying at his feet, and gestured to his subordinates. At this moment, another angry shout came from the woods next to him. "None of you can leave." Along with the roar, a black ball flew out, and hit Qishuang and the other person on the riverbank. It came so fast. Kamiya sighed helplessly, and then easily dodged the flying black ball. At the same time, 2 figures in the forest approached rapidly. Fire style, great fireball technique. After a violent chakra fluctuation, a large orange-red fireball with a diameter of more than 3 meters flew out from the forest, and the target was still Qishuang and the other person on the bank. Feeling the overwhelming heat wave and oppressive breath, Kamiya did not dare to neglect it. He immediately formed a set of hand seals and injected chakra into the river water next to him. Water style, water array wall. Just as the fireball was approaching, a huge wave suddenly surged out of the river behind him, like a large light blue bowl, which held the 2 upside down. Hiss. The orange-red fireball hit the blue bowl without any fancy moves. The blazing high temperature boiled the river water that made up the bowl in just a moment, and countless white water vapors rose from the place where the 2 met. Even though he was in the bowl, Qishuang felt that the air was a bit hot, and sweat wet his vest involuntarily. Due to the attribute restraint and the loss of the geographical advantage, the newcomer, although 1 level higher than Shengu, still could not break the blue bowl in a short time. If he continued to fight, it would only be a waste of chakra. As a last resort, he had to interrupt his chakra transmission and cancel the fireball technique. Seeing the fireball outside dissipate, Shengu also immediately interrupted the chakra output on the water array wall. The blue bowl was like a round curtain, quickly retreating from the top of the 2 people's heads to the edge. Leaving the spherical steamer-like environment, the hot air immediately dispersed to the surroundings. The temperature dropped sharply, and the 2 people felt much cooler. The scene in front of them also made Qishuang feel a little bit of a toothache. The ninjutsu confrontation between Kamiya and Mew did not last long, just a few breaths, but the outside was already foggy, and the visibility was less than 5 meters. Although it was not as good as the previous mist hidden technique, it was not much worse. Seeing the black ball thrown earlier next to her, Qishuang exclaimed, "What's wrong?" Kamiya asked in surprise while being cautious. Teacher Mew, Kimimura is dead too. Looking at the black ball on the ground, he replied in a solemn tone. Ah. Kamiya was confused. Qishuang pointed at the black ball at his feet and said solemnly, Teacher Mew, the black ball they threw before is the head of Kimimura. Hearing this shocking news, Kimimura subconsciously looked back. In the black beard and hair covered with mud and dust, there were faint facial features, like someone's head. Looking more carefully, he suddenly found that the slightly familiar face was the head of Kimimura. There is no doubt that Kimimura was stopped by Konoha's ninja on the way back to report the news. This also explains why there were only 2 people who caught up with them. It turned out that the other 2 rushed directly to the front to ambush. The unlucky Kimimura ended his life like this. On the other side, the white steam quickly dissipated. After all, it was not a technique maintained by chakra and could not be retained for a long time. The 2 people from Konoha seemed very confident. They did not take this opportunity to launch the offensive first. Instead, they stood very calmly at the other end, looking at Qishuang and the others curiously. You two, very good. The leading Konoha ninja nodded gently to the 2. His tone was very calm. It was hard to tell whether he was happy or sad, and his mind was unpredictable. Then, he glanced at the body of his companion on the ground and asked, Did you kill the other one too? He sank to the bottom of the water to feed the fish. Qishuang replied calmly. While the other party was looking at them, he was also looking at the 2 people opposite. Both of them were very young, estimated to be around 20 years old. Although the leading man had no expression on his face, he exuded a sense of arrogance all over his body, which formed a sharp contrast with his companion next to him. Qishuang still remembered that it was that guy who easily killed Zaishu, and he was also the Konoha Jonin that Kamiya feared the most. At this moment, the 2 sides were very close, and he tried to sense the strength of the other party's chakra again, but he could not touch the edge. Perhaps, the gap between Jonin and Genin is too big. He thought so. As for the one next to that person, he had a striking inverted triangle tattoo on his face. He could barely touch the edge. It was a guy with a chakra strength similar to Kamiya. Obviously, he was a Chunin. No wonder I only saw a corpse. The leading Konoha ninja suddenly realized. Then, he reached behind his back and slowly pulled out the short knife on his back and sneered. In this case, you two should also go down and feed the fish. Uchiha. At this moment, seeing a red and white round fan emblem on the opponent's other arm near the shoulder, Qishuang shouted out. That was the family emblem of the famous Uchiha clan in the ninja world. What did you say? Kamiya next to him frowned immediately after hearing it. Facing a Jonin level opponent is already very difficult. If you add the title of Uchiha, it is simply unimaginable. Teacher Mew, look carefully. There is an emblem on his left arm. That is the Uchiha family emblem. Looking at the man, Qishuang said solemnly. Hearing this, Shengu Mew looked carefully and found the red and white round fan emblem on the other's arm. That is the family emblem of the Uchiha family. Oh. The man looked at Qishuang in surprise, and a rare smile appeared on his face, and then said, You little guy, you have a good eye. Much better than your team leader. As he said, he looked at Shengu Mew jokingly, which made Shengu Mew feel a little embarrassed. As a reward for you recognizing me, I decided to leave you a whole body. As for feeding the fish, you, the team leader, are enough. Remember, the person who killed you is from the Uchiha family, Uchiha. Before he finished speaking, he restrained his smile, raised the short knife upside down, rushed to Qishuang with a flash of body, raised his hand and fell, and immediately cut it down. Even Kamiya next to him didn't react before the opponent's knife had already fallen. What a fast speed. With a cry of surprise, Kamiya then swung a kunai over, wanting to attack and rescue, force him back, and not give him a chance to strike again. Uchiha was a little surprised, as his knife didn't seem to hit the real thing. However, he didn't continue to entangle, and immediately retreated to avoid the incoming kunai. Chapter 20 Rehiding. Bang! A stream of white smoke rose from the body of the Nanabi that was slashed by Uchiha, and it turned into a kunai, and fell to the ground. At the same time, a short figure suddenly appeared 3 meters away from the kunai. Substitution technique? Seeing this scene, Uchiha couldn't understand why the feeling of the knife just now was not right. It's quite alert, worthy of praise. He raised the corners of his mouth slightly, but the expression didn't seem to be praise, but more like a mockery. Substitution technique is a technique to put a chakra mark on another personal item. When encountering danger, the chakra mark is used to leave the personal item in place and move oneself a short distance away. Although it is very convenient, the chakra mark needs to be nurtured from time to time on weekdays and has a time limit. Therefore, the opponent can't use the substitution technique again in a short period of time. Kid, next time, you'll be dead. He took a deep look at Nanabe on the opposite side. On the other side, seeing his subordinate escape with the substitution technique, Kamehameha was overjoyed and patted his chest immediately and said, "You scared me to death." Then, he immediately retreated to Qishuang's side and took a defensive posture against the two Konoha ninjas. "Teacher Mew, you were just a little frightened, but I almost died." Looking at the calm enemy on the opposite side, Qishuang said in shock. Since recognizing the identity of the other party Uchiha, he has been very alert, especially at the moment when the other party drew his sword. Although he did not see the other party's movements clearly, he still relied on instinct to activate the substitution technique, which saved him from a disaster. If he was a little slower, he might really die under the other party's sword. The speed difference between the Jonin and the Genin is so terrifying. I will create a thick fog to cover the whole place and try to delay that Uchiha. Be careful. After instructing his subordinates, Kamehameha immediately formed a set of hand seals. Water style, mist hidden technique. As he injected chakra into the river, the thick white fog rose again, like white cotton candy, covering an area of dozens of meters. But this candy didn't taste sweet, but instead had a bit more murderous intent. Annoying. Seeing the fog rising and covering the figures of the two mist ninjas, Uchiha couldn't help but curse inwardly. If one were to rank the most annoying tricks of the mist hidden village, the first one would definitely be the mist hidden technique. Although this ninjutsu has no direct lethality, it can block vision. Unless one has professional perception, the rest of the people are no different from blind people in this thick fog and have to worry about sudden attacks all the time. However, the caster can retreat to defend and advance to attack, which is very convenient. Now, although he is not afraid of the sneak attack of the mist ninja with his strength, he has also lost the opportunity to take the initiative to attack. Because he can't see, he can only passively wait for the opponent to come to him. Not only that, once the thick fog spread, he also lost the possibility of dealing with the mist ninja brat in a short time. This would undoubtedly drag them into a protracted war. If it was somewhere else, it would be fine. He had the patience to play slowly with the two mist ninjas, one big and one small, but this place was very close to the front line camp of the mist hidden village. The battle between the two sides would inevitably create a lot of noise. After a long time, he could not guarantee that the people of the mist hidden village would not discover the battle here. By then, not only would he not be able to defeat the opponent, but he might also be in danger. Thinking of this, he immediately told his companions next to him, "Quick battle. Don't deliberately look for the guy who cast the spell. Find the brat first and kill him. In this way, I don't believe he won't come out." "Yes." The Konoha ninja next to him nodded. Uchiha's voice was very loud, and he did not deliberately hide it from his opponent. Therefore, Qishuang and the other person on the other side of the thick fog heard it clearly. Qishuang understood that this was an open conspiracy. He is not a caster and cannot use the power of the fog to cover up all his breath, so his situation in the thick fog is the same as the two people from Konoha. As long as they can find his trace and stick to him completely, he will have no chance of escaping. At the same time, the purpose of the two people's words, in addition to intimidating him, is also to force Kamehameha, the caster, to show up. If Kamehameha had been quietly guarding by the side, like a sword hanging over their heads, they would have been unable to sleep or eat. But if they could force him out, they would feel much more at ease. Helplessly, Kamehameha whispered to Qishuang, "I will try my best to delay the Uchiha family, and as for the remaining one, you kid can only wish you good luck. Don't die before me. Remember to make a bigger noise in the battle. If we can attract reinforcement from Kirigakure, we may have a chance of survival." After that, he hid in the thick fog again and launched a tentative attack on Uchiha. It's not that he likes to take on tough opponents, but the two opponents are at least at the level of Chunin, and with his ability, he can only hold one. If he chooses a Konoha Chunin and lets Nanoshuan face the Konoha Jonin, he may not be able to last more than a few rounds. In the end, once Nanoshuan dies, he will face two enemies alone, and the possibility of survival is even slimmer. Therefore, he can only choose Uchiha as his opponent. Presumably, this is also within the opponent's expectations. At present, the only advantage of the two of them is that there is this thick fog to separate them, and also to separate them from the people of Konoha, minimizing the danger. The rest is to hide, and seek in this thick fog, delay time, and wait for reinforcement. Ding. Kamehameha quietly went around behind Uchiha and launched an attack. Unfortunately, it was easily blocked by the opponent. Especially when he saw the other party's pair of red pupils, he didn't dare to entangle and retreated after one strike, for fear of being hit by the illusion of the Sharingan and becoming a dish delivered to his door. After blocking the opponent's sneak attack, Uchiha ordered his companion beside him, "That guy is here. You go deal with the kid from the Mist Hidden sect. He is not a caster. It should be easier to find him than this guy. I don't want that kid to be alive after I deal with this guy." Hearing Uchiha's somewhat unhappy tone, his companion nodded and said, "I will definitely not let you down." After that, he plunged into the thick fog and disappeared. Kamehameha did not make a move to stop him. Both sides seemed to have tacitly chosen their opponents. After the footsteps of his companion faded away, Uchiha said loudly to the surrounding thick fog, "The last Mist Ninja who used the Mist Hidden sect in front of me only lasted 10 moves before I caught the opportunity and killed him with one blow. I'm curious, how many moves can you survive under my eyes?" Faced with the mockery, Kamehameha remained unmoved, still concentrating on capturing every move of the opponent, waiting for an opportunity to attack. Although he knew the Sharingan was famous, he still had to face this dangerous opponent. Now, he just hoped that the previous explosion would attract the attention of the other side of the hill and attract the investigation of Kirigakure as soon as possible. Chapter 21 Smell. On the other side, Nanoshuan hid in the thick fog, trying his best to restrain his breath and avoid a direct encounter with the Konoha Chunin. He thought that every minute he could delay was a minute. After all, the gap between Chunin and Genin was still very large. Previously, if the Konoha ninja had not been too careless, and he had deliberately attacked, it would have been impossible to kill the other party. At this moment, he had performed 3 ice escapes, 2 water clones, and 1 substitution technique. Although he had the advantage of water and terrain, which saved a lot of effort, but in terms of his current physical condition, these 5 techniques had already made his chakra bottom out. He estimated that his remaining chakra was only enough to perform 1 ninjutsu. Therefore, he had to be very careful, use the fog of Kamehameha to deal with the opponent, wait for the opportunity to move, and ensure that his last ninjutsu could kill with 1 blow. Otherwise, if he accidentally wasted the remaining chakra, he would become a lamb to be slaughtered. Umura and Natsuki were his previous lessons. Boom. There was a sharp explosion in the thick fog in front of the left. The red flame penetrated the thick fog, and even though it was 7 or 8 meters away, it was clearly reflected in Qishuang's eyes. Then, from the other side of the explosion, there was another angry curse. "Asshole. Little bastard, when I catch you, I will skin you alive." Hearing this, Qishuang showed a smug smile and thought to himself, it seems that not all Konoha ninjas are at the same level as the 12 of Naruto and Sasuke. They even fell into such a simple bait trap. But, the humidity in this thick fog is too heavy, it's really a bit cold. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but exhale a breath of hot air into his palm and rubbed his 2 bare arms exposed in the fog. Just when he parted with Kamehameha, he took off his coat, picked up a branch, and propped it up in place, and used the detonating tag to set up a simple trigger trap. As long as someone touches the clothing, it will cause an explosion. If they were in a flat open area, others would be able to see through it at a glance, and it would be difficult to fall into such a simple trap. However, they were in a thick fog at the moment, and except for the caster Kamehameha, everyone else's vision was extremely limited. In addition, the other party was a Chunin, while he was a Genin, and there was a huge difference in strength between the two. Based on this point, the other party would definitely not take him too seriously and would think about getting rid of him quickly. He was impatient and careless, and his vision was blocked. In this thick fog, if he vaguely saw his figure, he would definitely pounce on it without hesitation and start a fatal attack. The possibility of falling into a trap was almost 99%. However, judging from the other party's full-blooded curse, it should not be a big deal, just a small loss. He needed to wait a little longer before he could make a move. While thinking, he retreated, and soon he retreated to the surface of the river again. He did not know the silent killing technique, so he could not cover up the sound of his actions. Therefore, he needed to use the sound of the river to cover up his movements. On the river, he would be safer. This time, it shouldn't be a trap, right, kid? Along with the murderer Sora, a sinister voice appeared behind Qishuang. Not good. Without time to think, he fell down. A silver knife light swept out from the back of his head. Oh. It seems that you are different from those two kids. Seeing Qishuang narrowly avoid the attack from behind, the man was a little surprised. However, he was confident of his strength as a Chunin, and was sure of winning, so he did not take the opportunity to pursue. Instead, he looked at the little boy who climbed up carefully with great curiosity. How did you find me in such a short time? Qishuang asked solemnly, and slowly retreated, trying to hide in the fog again. Unfortunately, the man seemed to see through his thoughts, followed him step by step, and always kept a fixed distance from him. Although they could not see each other clearly, they could still barely catch each other's traces. The man replied playfully, if you hadn't set up that trap, it would have taken me a while to find you out of this thick fog. But now, even if you hide in the fog again, it won't help, because your traces can't escape my sense of smell, he said, wiping his nose with great arrogance. Sense of smell. On the other side, Qishuang frowned immediately after hearing this. After thinking for a while, a surname of a prominent Konoha family appeared in his mind. Are you from the Konoha Inuzuka family? He shouted in surprise. Since the other party used the sense of smell to lock his whereabouts, there is no doubt that he must have a very high attainment in the sense of smell. And if we talk about ninjas who are good at smell, there are only two families in Konoha that are involved in this. One is the Aburame family, and the other is the Inuzuka family. The former uses the sense of smell of parasites to search for enemies, and the latter uses amplification of their own sense of smell to search for enemies. Not only are there differences in the way of smell search, but also in the way they fight. The Aburame family relied on bugs to perform ninjutsu attacks, while the Inuzuka family generally used taijutsu attacks with their ninjutsu partners. Although he did not see the ninjutsu partner of the visitor, he did not see the other party using bug ninjutsu. Moreover, with the fighting style of the Aburame family, if they could avoid taijutsu attacks, they would never use taijutsu. In addition, after seeing the inverted triangle facial pattern on the other party's face earlier, he was more willing to believe that the other party was from the Inuzuka family, not the Aburame family. Therefore, the reason why the other party found his trace so quickly also surfaced. Because he had just set a trap and used his coat to send his freshest source of smell to the other party. Although he took a small advantage, the other party also got the clue to track him. If it weren't for that, it would undoubtedly take more time for the other party to accurately distinguish his smell from the fog and find him. Sure enough, everything has its two sides. The goddess of fate will not always favor me. You are quite knowledgeable. The man opposite put away the short knife in his hand and said, since you know that I come from the Inuzuka family, you should understand that there is no possibility for you to escape my pursuit. You'd better accept your fate and stand there quietly and let me break your neck. In that case, I will mercifully give you a quick death and won't torture you. As he said that, he immediately crawled down, opened his hands, and placed them on the river surface, like a beast preparing to hunt, staring at the mist ninja child not far away. Beast mimicry ninja technique, full egg technique then. His breath seemed to have a wild flavor, and even his fingernails grew an inch longer. I will take your life, kid. A contemptuous voice came out of his mouth, and the man grinned, revealing 4 white fangs, just like a real beast. Before he finished speaking, he flashed and was in front of Qishuang, opened his 5 fingers with sharp nails, and grabbed directly. The setting of the detonating tag is very interesting. When Obito attacked Kushina, he put the detonating tag on Naruto's swaddling clothes and used the ignition detonation method. In the Naruto plot, there are many detonation methods triggered by traps or chakra detonation methods, as well as the chain method of detonating tags. It's really interesting. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22 Suppression. So fast. With a shudder in his heart, Qishuang instinctively leaned back and barely avoided the opponent's claw, but there was still a burning pain in his chest. He knew that it was the opponent's nails that scratched him. The claw did not grab firmly, but the Inuzuka ninja did not lose heart. Instead, he put his hands on the river and kicked in the air. One grab, one kick, a two-hit combo was as fast as flowing water, and there was no time for the opponent to react. Qishuang only felt a sharp pain in his lower abdomen, and the whole person flew out. After rolling on the river for several times, he finally caught his breath and used his hands and feet to stop his retreat. Hiss, he took a breath of cold air, endured the severe pain in his lower abdomen, and slowly stood up, looking at the other side of the thick fog, his face full of solemnity. The opponent was an adult, whose speed and strength were much faster than his. In addition to the gap in comprehensive strength, he had almost no power to fight back in a head-on fight. If he doesn't think of a countermeasure quickly, he will have to die here today. At this moment, an extremely oppressive breath came from the thick fog opposite. Little devil, you'd better stop resisting. Let me give you a quick death. Tanga. Then, after the whistling sound of breaking through the air, Qishuang saw a small grey-white hurricane, which dispersed the surrounding thick fog, like a sharp cone, shooting straight at him. Don't take it head-on. Seeing the ninjutsu used by the opponent, he immediately made his own judgment. He couldn't block it. Then, he immediately withdrew the chakra attached to his feet, and at the moment, when the wind cone was approaching, he sank into the river dangerously, and once again avoided a fatal blow. The wind cone pierced behind the position, where Qishuang was just now. After the huge waves fell, the ninja of the Inuzuka family slowly appeared. Humph. Just trying to be clever. He snorted coldly. The attack that was sure to win just now missed, and he was not in a good mood. What's more, the opponent was just a little kid at the genin level. He thought that he should be able to capture this kind of kid easily, but he didn't expect that the opponent actually avoided his fatal attacks twice in a row. This made him a little embarrassed. Then, he sniffed the air around him carefully, ready to search for the opponent's trace again. However, he found that the opponent seemed to have disappeared out of thin air and could not be found again. Could it be that the kid is still hiding in the water? He guessed secretly. At present, the opponent can only hide in the water so that he can no longer smell the trace. I don't believe you won't come out. He gritted his teeth and made a ruthless move. As long as he caught the opponent's breathing, he could kill him with one blow. Then, he took out a torn corner of clothes from his pocket and sniffed it carefully again. It was the remaining clothing fragments of the Mist Ninja Kid who had used it to set up the explosion trap. After the other party's body was washed by the river water, the smell on his body would definitely be greatly weakened. In order to distinguish the subtle smell, he had to strengthen the impression of the other party's smell in his mind. Hard work pays off. Not long after, he smelled the breath of the Mist Ninja Kid on the river again. Although the breath was very weak, it still did not hide from his nose. Beast mimicry ninja technique. Full egg technique. He crawled forward again, making the posture of a beast hunting. This is the secret technique of their Inuzuka family. Through this technique, one can transform his body into a beast, and then gain the speed and strength of a beast. Kid, I smell your breath. You're dead. With an arrogant laugh, he moved his forelimbs and rushed towards the source of the smell. The distance between the two was shortened a lot in an instant. Because of the thick fog, he could only smell the smell, and he couldn't be sure whether the other party had set a trap again this time. He didn't rush to attack directly. He just tried to get as close to the other party as possible, hoping to include it in this limited field of vision and ensure that he could kill it with one blow. He didn't want to delay any longer. If he continued to drag it out, he would be ridiculed by that Uchiha in the future. He was a Chunin, but it took him so much effort to deal with the Genin kid. If he told others about it, he would become the laughingstock of Konoha. As the distance between the two sides shortened, he finally confirmed that the source of the smell was not a trap, but the opponent's real body. Moreover, the boy was about to make a seal to cast a spell. At the same time, when the man from the Inuzuka family took Nanashi's figure into his field of vision, Nanashi also completed his own technique. He immediately launched the prepared technique. Ice Release Needle Rain technique. He used the Ice Release Chakra as a guide to quickly condense the mist in the air into ice, and condensed it into 3-inch long sharp needles, aiming at the enemy who rushed into his field of vision, and carrying out a covering attack. This jutsu again. The ninja from the Inuzuka family raised his eyebrows. Because the opponent's attack was too sudden, and the ice needles were small, it was difficult to detect in this thick fog, and he was immediately hit by several shots. It was not until he felt the pricking and coldness in his body that he realized he had been attacked. Then, he dodged to the side and urgently avoided the large number of ice needles behind him. Then, while locking the Mist Ninja Kid in his field of vision, he moved at high speed to avoid the continuous ice needle attack behind him. As soon as the rain of ice needles stopped, he would launch a fatal attack. Although the actual damage of the ice needles was not strong, he was not a masochist. He had been stabbed by it once before, and he never wanted to try that again. Besides, to deal with such a low-level kid, he still needed to use the life-for-life fighting method. If he told others about it, his Inuzuka family would not be able to afford to lose that person. So cautious. Seeing that the other party was trying his best to avoid the needle rain attack, Nanashiro, who was operating a large number of ice needles in the air, frowned secretly. He originally thought that, after experiencing the baptism of needle rain, the other party would choose to withstand this move with little lethality and launch a strong attack on him. Unexpectedly, the other party's caution was somewhat beyond his expectations. "You are so rational and cautious, but I will be very distressed." He curled his lips, feeling a little bad, but still did not cancel the release of this ice needle technique. He just slightly limited the number of ice needles that fell, trying to extend the release time of the technique. After all, his chakra was almost gone after releasing this technique, and he must kill the opponent before this technique was completely released. As for how to use the remaining chakra to kill the opponent, he had drawn up a plan when he hid under the water just now. A plan designed based on the insufficient lethality of ice escape. But this plan has a prerequisite, that is, the opponent is not afraid of his ice needle attack and launches a strong attack. But now, the opponent's cautious attitude makes him like a mouse pulling a turtle, and he has nowhere to start. Please collect, please ask for the big guy's book list. Chapter 23, Reverse Scale. We must think of a way to make this guy take my ice needle. Looking at the figure fleeing quickly, Qishuang frowned. At this moment, he seemed to have a sudden thought. A dog. The Inuzuka family is a famous animal trainer in Konoha, and the tribe members are good at the secret technique of cooperating with ninja dogs. Therefore, they are often inseparable. Just like the sword in the hands of a top swordsman, the person is inseparable from the sword, and the sword is inseparable from the person. Therefore, for the ninjas of the Inuzuka family, ninja dogs are their half-body and an indispensable part of life. The opponent in front of Qishuang is a member of the Inuzuka clan, but there is no ninja dog following him, which is an extremely abnormal situation. If the opponent's ninja dog is hiding aside and preparing for a sneak attack, this possibility is very small. Because since the earlier encounter with the 4 people from Konoha, he has not seen any ninja dog. This shows that the opponent's ninja dog is not around at all. And considering the importance of ninja dogs to the Inuzuka clan, there can only be one reason for not being around. That is, the death of the ninja dog. Because, even if they are sick or injured and cannot participate in the battle, the Inuzuka clan will not leave their side. In addition, it is a war period now, and death is the norm. At the moment, his opponent is participating in the battle without a ninja dog. The possibility that his partner's ninja dog has died is as high as 90%. Thinking of this, Qishuang suddenly had an idea in his mind. He immediately stopped the ice needle that was about to fall in the air and shouted to the man with a smile, "Hey, that Inuzuka family. I have a question to ask you. Noticing that there were no more ice needles falling behind him, the ninja of the Inuzuka family also stopped immediately and sniffed the air carefully. Sensing that there were still a lot of chakra fluctuations in the air and that the opponent's technique had not been completely released, he did not dare to rush forward, but stood in place very cautiously and replied curiously, "What do you want to ask?" In this case, the other party actually had the mind to ask him a question, and he couldn't help but be curious. Isn't it said that in your Inuzuka family, people are inseparable from dogs, and dogs are inseparable from people? Where is your ninja dog? Qishuang asked in surprise. Hearing this, the ninja from the Inuzuka family immediately fell in dismay and said coldly, "Without it, I can still kill you." Seeing this, Qishuang immediately understood that he had guessed right. Then, he suddenly raised his voice. Could it be that he died on the battlefield? Then, the man from the Inuzuka family clenched his fists, and his eyes swept over him coldly, with a bit more anger in his original killing intent. "I guess your ninja dog must have been raised too fat. It was picked by the opponent at first sight, and then it became someone else's dog meat hot pot. Ha ha ha." Qishuang laughed unscrupulously. Hearing this, the man from the Inuzuka family was stunned at first, and then his brain burst like boiling water. Killing intent and anger churned together, and his brain was about to explode. "I will kill you. I will kill you. I must kill you." At this moment, there was only one thought left in his mind. That was to kill the other party. Kill that foul-mouthed Miss Ninja Kid at all costs. Very good. Very good. Seeing the other party's furious look, Qishuang raised the corner of his mouth. His method of provoking was successful. At the moment, the only way he could think of to make the other party attack him desperately was to provoke him. There is such a place in everyone's heart, which is a forbidden area for others, and cannot be touched. As the old saying goes, a dragon has a reverse scale, and if you touch it, you will die. Just like Sasuke's reverse scale is Itachi, and Naruto's reverse scale is Sasuke. As long as he mentions these two people in front of them, and then instigates them a little, they will lose their minds and become crazy. And now, he only needs to touch the reverse scale of this Inuzuka ninja to achieve his goal. Although he doesn't know the other party, he knows very well that all Inuzuka clan members have a common reverse scale, that is, ninja dogs. Originally, saying bad things about ninja dogs in front of them is already very hateful. Now, he also teases the other party's dead partner, saying that he wants to eat dog meat and so on, which is like abusing the bones of other people's relatives and friends. The hatred of the Inuzuka family towards him has probably reached an unprecedented level. He wanted to skin him alive, drain his tendons, drink his blood, and eat his flesh. A head-on confrontation was just around the corner. Then, he deliberately smacked his lips, licked the corner of his mouth, and continued to tease. "Speaking of dog meat, it tastes so delicious. I haven't eaten dog for a long time." Before he finished speaking, a roar came from the opposite side. Tanga with a heart full of hatred and anger, the Inuzuka family ninja locked onto the misty figure on the opposite side, and then turned his waist, turned into a small grey wind cone, and stabbed straight over. As for whether the opponent's ice needle would hurt him and make his victory too ugly, he no longer cared. The only thing left in his mind was the thought of tearing the opponent to pieces. "Come on. Go." Seeing the opponent attacking, Qishuang quickly dodged to the side and controlled the remaining half of the ice needle in the air to shoot rapidly. Ding ding ding. The moment his ice needles came into contact with the grey wind cone, nearly half of them were immediately shattered, and the remaining half were either bounced or deflected by the cyclone caused by the opponent's high-speed rotation, and none of them could enter the wind cone. Sure enough, is the hardness of my ice still too poor? Seeing this, Qishuang frowned. Fortunately, these attacks of his were just feints, and the real killer move was still at the end. Wow. The grey wind cone passed by him, and he felt a chill on his arm, and then a burning pain surged to his scalp. Looking closely again, a palm-sized piece of skin had been scraped off his arm. For a moment, blood flowed, and the pain made his upper and lower teeth tremble. The grey wind cone fell to the water and slowly dissipated. The ninja of the Inuzuka family crawled on the water with red eyes, already posing as a beast hunting. Go. At the same time, just as he escaped from the grey wind cone, Qishuang endured the severe pain in his arm. controlled the last few ice needles in the thick fog above his head, and shot them at the target. Puff. A few muffled sounds came, and the ninja of the Inuzuka family had a few more ice needles on his body. He noticed the ice needles when they appeared, but the opponent's timing was too accurate, and he had no chance to dodge. Or rather, he was full of anger and hatred, and he had no idea of dodging at that moment. Because he had long known that the opponent's ice needle attack was very weak, and could only cause some skin injuries. He just wanted to tear the opponent apart in an irresistible manner, so as to vent his anger and hatred. Kid, your attack is too weak. You are not even qualified to tickle me. Now, please die. Beast mimicry ninja technique. Full egg technique. Without bothering to remove the ice needles from his body, he quickly activated the technique to strengthen his physique, and pounced on the hateful Miss Ninja Kid again, just wanting to seize the opportunity when the opponent's ice needles were exhausted, and kill him immediately. I feel that this hatred is still reasonable. However, it may be that I'm not good at writing this kind of emotional changes. I always feel that I can't write the process of the hatred change of the Inuzuka ninja. Chapter 24, Poison Needle. Seeing the other party rushing over again, Qishuang did not hesitate at all, and hurriedly retreated, and began to count silently in his mind. 1. The sharp claws of the Inuzuka ninja brushed past him, and his other arm had a few more blood marks. 2. The man turned around and rushed back, but his speed was a beat slower than before. He narrowly avoided the other party's attack again. 3. The Inuzuka man approached again, but he was a little confused. Why didn't the kid flee in panic this time, but stayed quietly on the river surface to wait for his attack? Then, with many puzzles, he reached out with a claw again. Unfortunately, this time, it was still in vain, and the other party easily dodged it. Why did your speed suddenly become so fast? After the third attack failed, he immediately stopped the pointless attack and asked the Miss Ninja Kid in surprise. His speed was much faster than the other party, and combined with the four-leg technique that strengthened his physical fitness in a short period of time, he should have killed this kind of low-level ninja with one blow. But the result was exactly the opposite. If the other party was lucky enough to avoid his first attack, it would be fine, but the second and third times were not good luck. He clearly felt that the other party was more and more at ease when avoiding his second and third attacks, as if his speed had increased a lot out of thin air. Even if he was the illegitimate child of the goddess of luck, it would be impossible for him to have such a sudden change, right? At this moment, he felt a pain in his chest, and then he vomited a large mouthful of blood with a wow. He felt that his body was like a deflated ball, and the strength of his whole body was slowly dissipating like the overflowing filling gas, and even it was very difficult for him to stand. With a thud, his knees softened, and he immediately knelt on the river. At the same time, a teasing voice came. It's not that I'm faster, but that you're slower. You. The man from the Inuzuka family pointed at the little boy who was gradually approaching. Just as he was about to say something, he suddenly vomited blood again, and his arm fell helplessly. It was as if that mouthful of blood had drained his strength, and he couldn't even lift his arm. You, what on earth did you do to me? With blood hanging from the corner of his mouth, he asked the Miss Ninja Kid in horror. Nana Frost quickly moved in front of him, and then kicked him away fiercely, laughing. Didn't your teacher teach you, when you were in school, that ninjas can also poison people? Poison? Hearing this, the Inuzuka clan member who was kicked away finally understood what was wrong with his body. It turned out to be poisoned. No wonder his speed suddenly dropped, and he vomited blood inexplicably. Boom. He hit the water surface without any preparation, and the impact of the water surface rebounding from it shocked his internal organs. Under normal circumstances, even if he stood still and let such a little devil kick him, it would not be a problem. But now, he was inexplicably poisoned, which made his whole body weak and his physical condition was not as good as before. The opponent's attack was like the last straw that broke the camel's back. No matter how he struggled, he could no longer stand up. He could only try his best to control the chakra attached to his body, so that he would not sink into the water and drown. He knew that he was going to die, but before he died, he still had a question that needed to be answered, so he barely supported himself until now. How did you poison me? Lying on his back on the river, he stared at the mist ninja child who was gradually approaching, and asked intermittently. Generally speaking, there are two main ways for ninjas to poison. One is to use food or air, to start from the opponent's mouth and nose, to send the poison into the opponent's body. The other is to use the ninja tool to poison, start from the opponent's wound, and inject the toxin into the enemy's body. He could basically rule out the former, because he had never eaten anything from the other party, nor had he seen the other party waving poison powder into the air. As for the latter, he could barely rule it out, because apart from being injured by the detonating talisman just now, he had not been injured by the ninja tools of the little devil. As for the detonating talisman being poisonous, he had never heard of it, because the high temperature generated at the moment of the explosion was enough to evaporate the poison powder or venom and burn it out. So, even if he racked his brains, he couldn't figure out how he was poisoned. Qishuang slowly walked up to him, gently pulled out an ice needle that was still stuck in the man's body, and shook it under his eyes, saying meaningfully, "I use these ice needles to poison you." No. Is it impossible? Without waiting for the man to finish his words, Qishuang interrupted him immediately, looked at him sarcastically, and said playfully, "Ice needles, can't they be poisonous?" No, impossible. The ninja from the Inuzuka family widened his eyes, and he almost squeezed out these words from his throat. Apart from professional poison techniques, he had never heard of other ninjutsu that also had poisonous properties. Qishuang shook his head and said sarcastically, "Just because you don't understand, doesn't mean it's impossible." He knew early on that his ice needles were not hard enough, resulting in limited lethality, and he only had enough chakra to perform one ninjutsu. If he wanted to finish off the opponent with just one ninjutsu, he had to use other means. Therefore, when he was avoiding the opponent's attack under the water, he came up with the idea of using poison. So, after surfacing, he immediately took a packet of poison powder from his body, dissolved it in a ball of water, and then used ice escape to condense it into several poisonous ice needles. As for the rest of the ice needles, they were what he used to cover up. The purpose was to give the opponent a deeper impression that his ice needles had little lethality, attract the opponent to attack, and then take the opportunity to shoot those poisonous ice needles at the opponent to ensure the hit rate of those ice needles. Unfortunately, the opponent was too cautious and did not attack directly at the beginning. This forced him to resort to provocation. In addition, the opponent's Tanga was too powerful, making his ice needles useless. It was not until he caught the floor at the moment when the technique ended that the poisoned ice needles completely hit the opponent. This laid the foundation for his victory. Originally, if the opponent was not so impatient and pulled out the ice needles before attacking, there might be a chance of a comeback. But his anger made him lose his rational judgment, and he did not pay attention to the ice needles at all. He then used a move that increased his body's speed and strength, and launched a violent attack, which further melted the ice needles in his body, aggravating the spread of the toxins, which cause the body to become poisonous and weak. Chapter 25. The mist dissipates. Now, the winner has been decided. Please close your eyes in peace. Qishuang raised the corner of her mouth, pinched the ice needle, and probed it towards the opponent's neck. No, I can't. I can't die here. How can I die in the hands of a little devil like you? Seeing the ice needle getting closer and closer, the man from the Inuzuka family widened his eyes and roared unwillingly. Then, he struggled to take out a kunai, wanting to make a final desperate resistance. Humph. A dying struggle. Qishuang's eyes were stern, and when the opponent's kunai was just raised, he took the lead and stabbed the ice needle into the opponent's neck. The nearly 10 cm long ice needle was completely pierced into the man's neck under his force. The man suddenly widened his eyes, and the kunai he had just raised fell into the water again, twitched twice, and then covered his neck with one hand, and pointed at the child in front of him with a trembling hand. He wanted to say something, but he couldn't utter a word. Only red blood flowed out of his mouth and nose. His eyes slowly dimmed in resentment and anger, and his consciousness gradually blurred. Woof woof woof. Faintly, he seemed to hear a few familiar dog barks. Is this the feeling of death? Maybe, this is also good. At least, it won't be alone. Then, Qishuang on the river surface saw that the originally resentful and angry opponent seemed to show a relieved smile and then slowly sank into the river. Just as he was fighting hard with the man from the Inuzuka family, Kamiaki on the other side ran into big trouble. Because of the illusion of the Sharingan, he didn't dare to attack the person head on, for fear that a negligence would cause irreversible consequences. After all, although the mist hidden technique has the function of blocking vision, it can't completely block it. In this thick fog, there is still a visual distance of about 2 meters. Considering that the Sharingan illusion can only be activated when the opponent's eyes are clearly visible, a distance of about 1 meter should be enough for the opponent to perform the Sharingan illusion. Therefore, in order to be on the safe side, he chose to attack from behind the opponent every time he attacked. Even so, he felt that every time he attacked, he was like dancing on the edge of a knife, full of dangers. Since the first time he attacked, he has sneak attacked that Uchiha 6 times. However, the Sharingan is too strong. His speed is not superior to that of the opponent. Even if there is a thick fog to cover and launch a sneak attack, he still can't take advantage of the dynamic visual effect of the Sharingan. Especially from the first time he attacked to now, he felt that the opponent was more and more calm in resisting his attack. This is the result of the opponent gradually figuring out his attack rhythm. He knew that he was already in danger. Once the opponent completely figured out his attack rhythm, what awaited him was the opponent's counter-attack, which was likely to be a fatal counter-attack. However, he had no choice. Knowing that every attack was getting closer to death, he still had to attack. Because the opponent's strength was 1 level higher than his, escaping was simply a luxury. He was not sure that he could escape alive into the security range of the Kirigakure camp. The only hope was that Nana Shuang could lucky kill the Konoha Chunin again and come to help him. Although he knew that this expectation was ridiculous, he couldn't help but think so. At this moment, a teasing voice came from the thick fog. "What's wrong? Are you scared? You only made 6 moves. Maybe the next move can kill me." Then, a burst of unbridled laughter came from the thick fog. "Ha ha ha. Arrogant." Kamiyamu, who was hiding in the fog, couldn't help but frowned. However, he could only talk nonsense, because the opponent's strength was not enough to be arrogant in front of him. Then, he picked up the kunai and quietly turned behind Uchiha, ready to attack again. But for some reason, the closer he got to the opponent's back this time, the stronger the feeling of fear in his heart became. "Am I really scared?" He glanced at his hand holding the kunai, which was trembling slightly, and muttered to himself, "Forget it, let's try it one last time. If it doesn't work this time, then I'll give up completely." Looking at the figure not far away, he gritted his teeth. He was unwilling to give up after 6 sneak attacks without even scratching the opponent's clothes. He wanted to try again. Holding his breath, he raised the kunai and moved behind Uchiha in an instant. Just as his kunai was about to fall on the opponent's neck, a silver light shot into his eyes. It was the opponent's unsheathed short sword. Not good. He thought to himself that it was not good. The opponent had indeed understood his attack rhythm and was ready to counterattack. He immediately retreated, wanting to stop this attack, but it was too late. A playful voice came from his ear. "Do you really think I can't do anything to you if you attack from behind?" Sharingan illusion at the same time, Kamiyamu saw a pair of red eyes reflected on the silver blade of the short sword. Then, the pair of red eyes quickly enlarged in his mind, and he felt dizzy, and as if he had come to a strange world. 2 blood red moons hung high in the sky, emitting a strange red glow, which turned everything around into a blood red color. And he was like a stone sculpture, bathed in the red light, unable to move. After all the precautions, I was still hit. Looking at the 2 blood red moons, he smiled bitterly. He attacked from behind, and although he avoided direct line of sight with the Sharingan, the other party was not a fool. After figuring out his attack rhythm, he used the blade of the short sword to refract the light, so that their lines of sight met, and then cast an illusion on him. Uchiha slowly turned around, looking at the opponent who was holding a kunai in front of him with a mocking face, and sneered, "It seems that I overestimated you. You are even worse than the last mist ninja who performed the mist hidden technique. You have no chance after only 7 moves." After saying that, he stabbed the dagger into the opponent's chest, and then kicked him away. On the other side, Ninashiro, who had just defeated the opponent, saw that the thick fog around him was dissipating at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just 2 breaths, the thick fog around him had almost dissipated. Is there something wrong with Teacher Mew? He frowned. There are only 2 possibilities in this situation. One is that Mew killed the opponent and revoked the mist hidden technique. The other is that Mew was killed by Uchihite, which caused the fog to dissipate. Comparing the two, he is more inclined to Mew was killed. After all, the opponent is a Jonin of the Uchiha family, and Mew is just an ordinary mist hidden Chunin. At this moment, a figure flew out of the thin fog, and he recognized it at a glance as Mew. The long-awaited triple kill is here. Uchihite triple kill. Ha. Not bad. The triple kill protagonist team is worthy of a name from me, and the other 3 have no names. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.